Hello guys, welcome back to Animwata 4. As you can see in the picture today, we will start the story of where Izuku had the powers of Tempest Rimuru. Izuku never thought that his life would end so soon, dying before he could become a full-fledged hero like All Might. But this wasn't the end for him. Waking up in a new world, and with a new body, he discovers that his dream of becoming a hero hasn't died just yet. This time, he'll become the hero and leader that he was always meant to be. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into the story. Chapter 1. He felt odd. His eyes wouldn't open and he couldn't feel his arms or legs. My body, something is wrong with me. Wait, I can't see anything. He exclaimed in terror. What's happening? This can't be happening to me. He could make out a blur of something in front of him. The shape being that of something extremely common. Is that a rock? He moved forward. He did have sensation after all. Wait a second, where am I? He moved forward a bit more until he was on top of something. Is this his voice didn't work, so he couldn't talk out loud? Plant. Said plant was sucked into his body and dissolved after a few seconds. This feeling. He couldn't describe it, but it felt oddly good. Wait a second, humans can't dissolve plants. Well, someone with a certain quirk might be able to, but I can't. He paused for a few moments. I couldn't before. A sudden question came to mind. What happened to me? The team tried to remember. I met the Pussycats and Coda again, headed back to the dorms with the others, and there was someone at my door. We didn't know who it was. He stopped moving. He stabbed me in the stomach and chest. The harsh realization had come much too quick. Izuku Midoriya had been murdered. He'd been murdered. If I died, then why am I here? Why do I feel alive? Such a question that he would have to figure out on his own or with help from someone smarter than him. There had to be a reason for this. Moving forward a bit more, he began to notice something off about his body. I feel really bouncy, the teen said before he began to bounce forward. Yeah, bouncy with some elasticity. He stopped. As for my exterior, it's very. He began to try and process the answer that he was right. I'm a slime, he stated. Indeed, Izuku Midoriya had turned into a small dark green slime. But why slime of all things? He wondered. First I get stabbed to death, and then I get reincarnated as a slime. The universe hates me, doesn't it? Despite his lamenting, he continued onward. 2 weeks later. Cave. Izuku didn't know how long it had been since he woke up as a slime, but he was sure that it had been a pretty long time. In that time, he learned how useful his new body was. He didn't need to eat or sleep. And there goes another flower. And he'd been consuming all the flowers that he came across for a single reason. He was utterly bored and alone. He could not find an exit. Wait, where's all this stuff I'm eating going? He paused. I haven't used the bathroom in a while. Answer. A sudden female voice caught his attention. It is stored in the stomach of your unique skill. Predator. The voice stated calmly. Thank you for explaining that. Wait a second. I heard your voice when I was murdered. Who are you anyway? Answer. It is the effect of your unique skill, great sage, and now that your ability has been established, you are capable of reacting much quicker. Skill. My ability's right, but what is predator? It allows to ingest and analyze objects within your stomach. You can then acquire that object skills. The ability sounded just like All for One. Once the analysis is complete, you will be able to mimic that object as well. It was just like All for One. Izuku hoped that Psychopath was still locked up in Tartarus. The stomach stores objects you ingest, and can also isolate harmful objects that cannot be analyzed. All for One couldn't do that. At least he didn't think so. Predator sounds like an amazing skill. The teen stated, Can you analyze the flowers that I've been eating? It took a few seconds for the analysis to complete, but when it did, Great Sage informed him of their uses. The hypocrite herbs were very valuable and grew in areas rich in magicules. They were used to make salves and healing potions. The team was also informed about what magicules were and what they were the building blocks of all life and magical beings, including himself. Great Sage, do I have any other unique skills? Answer yes. Your final unique skill is One for All. This wasn't what he wanted to hear. He died and took One for All with him. Granted, it wasn't on purpose, but still. Maybe I'll find a way to use it if I ever get out of this cave. I'll put it to good use. He wouldn't give up on becoming a hero, no matter what world he was in or body he had. A week later, cave. I'd cut herbs and magi stone, or this had been his diet for the past week. He consumed everyone he saw or could find. Eat everything and leave nothing. I have to store up on potions if I ever need to. The team fell into a lake. He hadn't paid enough attention to where he was going. This is what I get for not paying attention to my surroundings. He couldn't swim up or at all. Looks like slimes don't float or breath for that matter. Landing on the bottom, he sighed. How am I going to get out of here? He looked around. I can't swim, but maybe I'll be able to propel myself. The teen sucked in water and held it for a few moments before propelling himself forward up to the surface and riding the water like a speedboat. Skill. Water pressure propulsion acquired. That's nice, but I'm going too fast, he exclaimed. Moments later, he was flying through the air. Not good, not goo. He smashed into what he thought was a very large rock. Falling onto the ground, he got up almost as if he wasn't feeling any pain. That wall, I hit it really hard, but I don't feel any pain, he stated. Answer. Because you have acquired the pain nullification skill, you will not feel pain. The physical damage you've taken is 10%. Special skill self-regeneration has been activated. I still take damage, but I don't feel pain. Wish I had that when I was human. The damage to his head healed. That was quick, but need to be more careful from now on. Izuku began to leave. Can you hear me, small one? The voice was loud and booming. It filled him with a sense of dread. Can you hear me, small one? The voice repeated. Yes, I can hear you, but I can't see you. He turned to the large opening in the wall. The inside was rich in large magi stone, or... I see. The being narrowed his eyes at the slime for a few moments before making his decision. Small one, I will give you sight. Sight, you could just up and give me the ability to see. The teen was excited. Wait, but why would this guy do that for me? He wanted to believe in kindness, but there was always a reason, an ulterior motive. Correct, but there are conditions. Were they? First, you must not fear me when you see me, and you must come back and talk to me. The being said. Silence reigned for a few seconds before Izuku spoke. Easy enough, but what's up with the second request? You see, I was sealed here 300 years ago, and since then I've been unbearably alone and bored. He stated, 300 years, I kind of want to know why you were sealed, but Izuku found no real negatives to the being's deal. Maybe he would be able to learn something from the being about where he was and what happened to him. I feel like 300 years is long enough, so let's see you. Very well. There's a skill called Magic Sense. Can you use it? No. This is the first I'm hearing of it. He stated, I'm going to take a guess and say that it'll allow me to sense the magicals around me. Right? Correct? And if I can detect them, then I'll be able to see. You catch on quick for a slime. He stated, but try anyway. I'll try. Izuku concentrated as best he could with great sage doing his job as a slight rainbow aura surrounded the slime until sight was finally gained. I can finally see, exclaimed in joy. Extra skill. Magical sense acquired. Great sage stated. Would you like to use it? Yes. The skill fully activated and he could finally see clearly. Amazing. It all looks so amazing. He exclaimed. Well, how is it? It's beyond great. He turned to the being that had given him sight. Thank you. In front of the dark green slime was a massive, intimidating dragon. This was who he'd been talking to this entire. His scales gleamed like black steel, flexible and durable like the scales of a fish. Silence reigned as Izuku stared at the beast in awe. You're a dragon. That's so cool. He exclaimed with excitement. And you are a slime. The massive dragon said before leaning forward. Allow me to formally introduce myself. I'm the only Storm Dragon Veldora. Storm Dragon? He asked. Even his title sounds cool. I am one of the 4 true dragons that exist in the world, Veldora stated. He began to chuckle, only to burst out laughing, causing the ground to shake. You truly aren't afraid of me, are you? Nope, he said joyfully. That's a relief to hear, but it is unusual. He said, slimes are normally low-rank monsters that don't think, but you have self-awareness. He explained, are you unique? Define unique. It refers to a being with extraordinary abilities. Well, I used to be human. This took the dragon by surprise. But I was killed, and the next thing I know, I'll wake up like this. In that case, you were reincarnated. Reincarnated? I think that I understand. It's pretty simple when you think about it. We catch on quick. He said once more. Well, I was a student when I was killed. How old are you? 16. You died young. What a shame. Veldora said. To be cut down at such a young age. It's all right. He smiled, or at least what was the equivalent to smiling, since he was a slime. People from other worlds come here regularly. Yes, we call the otherworlders, and you are the first to be reincarnated. I would like to meet some of these otherworlders. Maybe I can find someone from my world. The thought of finding someone with a quirk excited him. You're leaving already. The dragon was actually pouting. Don't worry, I'll stay a bit longer. Please do. Veldora really had been alone for a long time. Stay as long as you want. I swear. He noticed the barrier that surrounded Veldora. Veldora, you said that you were sealed 300 years ago. Why? I'm glad you asked. Veldora's story sounded as real as could be. Apparently, he accidentally turned an entire town to ash, and how someone came to slay him. The dragon underestimated his opponent before going all out, but he still lost. Then again, he was facing a hero who was blessed with divine protection. IZUKU held in the urge to laugh at the stereotypical fight. Of course the hero was going to win. And the hero was a human. It sounded like something off of a video game or comic book. The hero overpowered him with a unique skill, absolute severance, before sealing him with unlimited imprisonment. All those shiny crystals are part of the skill. Correct. The hero called herself a summon. He said. Veldora proceeded to explain what a summon was, and needless to say, IZUKU was grateful to be reincarnated as a slime. To be ripped from their home against their will, bound to someone you don't know, and then used as a weapon. That's beyond cruel. IZUKU stated. I don't know how your world was, but survival of the fittest prevails in this world. I see. Such a belief was common on Earth, but mostly by villains. So, you've been here in this cave ever since the hero sealed you? Yes, and I've been so very bored. Again, with the boredom. I can't say that I've never known loneliness. He couldn't help but pity the dragon. There was one thing he could do for the beast. Hey, Veldora, we should be friends. What? A mere slime proposes friendship with me. The fearsome storm dragon. He exclaimed. For some reason, IZUKU felt a sense of courage that he'd never felt before. He wasn't scared of the powerful dragon. Yes, I do. He exclaimed. But if you don't want to then. Cool. No one said I didn't want to. All right, then what do you say? Well, if you insist, I guess that I'm willing to think about it. Is this what Shoto told me about? Son dear. He bounced forward. Yes, I insist, and that settles it. The teen said, unless you'd rather refuse, and I never come here again. All right, I'll be your friend. You'd best be grateful. Veldora said. He really wasn't going to let this chance slip by. Just try and be honest. It makes things easier for both of us. IZUKU said, putting out a hand. Now it's nice to meet you. Indeed. Hand and claw shook. Veldora, the storm dragon, and IZUKU Midoriya, the slime, were now friends. Chapter 2. IZUKU stared at it, but nothing came to mind on how to accomplish his current. What are we going to do about this unlimited imprisonment seal that the hero put on you? IZUKU couldn't figure it out. Do something about it? Veldora inquired. Of course, we're friends, and friends don't let friends stay locked up in a prison like this. Besides, it's been 300 years. He said, by all accounts, Veldora is a villain, and I shouldn't let him out, but something inside of me tells me that he's changed and won't needlessly kill for no reason. He truly believed in his new friend. You? Unintentionally, he was giving IZUKU puppy dog eyes. Please don't look at me like that. It's really uncomfortable. He'd rather an actual dog look at him like that. If you've truly found a way to free me, then I'd be most grateful. Despite his calm demeanor, Veldora was jumping for joy on the inside. There was a chance that he would finally be free. The thing is, though, I wouldn't have lasted another 100 years in this place before my magic ran out. He stated, much to IZUKU's confusion. What do you mean? I would have kept losing more and more magicules. And it all goes into the cave, which explains the rich deposit of magicules and other valuables. He was beginning to understand. What happens when you run out? Veldora was silent for a few moments before sighing. He knew that IZUKU wouldn't like the truth, but he couldn't lie to his new friend. I'll die, it's that simple, he stated. 300 years of isolation from the outside world. and then to just die alone, that's a fate that I wouldn't wish on anyone, not even all for one. He silently stated before going to the barrier until he was close enough. Great Sage, use Predator to consume unlimited imprisonment. A piece of him stretched out, ready to consume the target. Needless to say, upon touching the barrier, it failed. Failure, Great Sage stated. I figured, and using one for all would be pointless. He stated, there had to be another way. Great Sage, is there anything else we can try? He needed an idea for this to work. He went silent. Hey, don't just keep talking to your own skill. IZUKU was deep in thought, listening to Great Sage. Veldora was much too antsy to wait. The suspense was killing him. Thankfully, it wasn't literal, as he only had a couple years to live if they failed. After a few more minutes, IZUKU turned around to Veldora. Well, this is a possibility, but she says that if we can analyze unlimited imprisonment from the inside and out, we might be able to remove it. He said, oh, but my skills are sealed just like me. I can't use them. Don't worry. If you can give me the data, then I can analyze the data out here. But that could take some time. Are you sure you want to stay in here that long? Somehow he knew that IZUKU would do so since they were friends. The team wouldn't abandon him. That was just the kind of person IZUKU was. Good point, but since I'm here, I like to search for others from my world. The slime stated. So, here's my suggestion. I want you to get in my stomach. Veldora stared at the teen, trying to understand and comprehend what he just said. I'll use my skills Great Sage and Predator to analyze unlimited imprisonment while you try to destroy it from the inside. You'll be quarantined in my stomach, so you won't disappear like everything else that I eat. He explained. This was the best that he and Great Sage could think of. So what do you think? His bravery was starting to wear off. Veldora suddenly burst out laughing. Does he think the plan is stupid? This plan sounds interesting. Let's do it. He exclaimed. His laughing had given IZUKU the wrong impression. I'll trust my entirety to you. You'll believe me that easily. Veldora was putting his trust in him. Of course, he said. It sounds more fun to break through unlimited imprisonment together than to wait here alone until you come back. Better two than one. At least Veldora and I will be on the same page, and we won't try and fight each other. His mind went to when he and Bakugo fought. Then his thoughts went to everyone else in Class 1A. Everyone had seen him bleed out and die. Hopefully, they've recovered by now. Mourning me will just get in their way. The team didn't want them to mourn him too much, but his mother wouldn't recover from his death. Maybe it would finally get his dad come home. He couldn't ignore this. Then again, maybe it would be best if he stayed away. All right, let's do this. He had to repress such depressing thoughts for the time being. All right, Predator, do your war. Wait a moment. IZUKU stopped. Before we start, I'll give you a name and you'll give me one. I already have a name, IZUKU Midoriya. It's the name I was born with. Yes, but it will engrave onto our souls and show that we are equal. He explained. It'll be what humans call a family name, but the name I give you will grant you divine protection. Divine protection sounded nice. You are still nameless, so you'll become a monster with a name. A monster with a name, that sounds nice, but there is a single requirement I need from you when you name me. Oh, and what would that be? Losing my human last name is something that I'll be able to live with, but my human first name is what I need to keep. It's one of the only things that my father ever gave me. It was one of the few good things that the man had done before walking out on his family. Agreed. Now give me a cool name. The Light, let's see. He began to wrap his name around the word Storm in Veldora's name. Storm, what's another word for storm? His eyes widened. Tempest. What do you think of Tempest? What? His sudden yelling made the teen jump back. What kind of name is that? You don't like it? It sounds fantastic. He exclaimed in joy. As of today I am Veldora Tempest. You like it? That's good. And now I shall grant you the name, IZUKU. Thank you. From now on you will be IZUKU Tempest. It was in that moment did the inside on IZUKU's body glow gold, and his body was filled with a newfound power. The name IZUKU Tempest had just been born. IZUKU Tempest, that's my new name now. It fits, Veldora said. IZUKU smiled. Veldora, I'm going to eat you now. So hurry and break out of that seal. When you do, you'll see the light day. I promise. The dragon chuckled. I'll hold you to that. Powerful magic surrounded IZUKU. Unique skill. Predator. IZUKU's body expanded, surrounding and covering the entire barrier. Moments later, it all began to shrink until Izuku had fully consumed it, and he was back to his normal form. That was fast, and I was just talking with him moments ago. Would you like to analyze the unique skill, Unlimited Imprisonment? Please do, he said. Veldora, you'll be out soon. Sadly, it wasn't going to be that easy, so now he would have to find his way out of the cave. He couldn't stay inside forever. With that, the slime embarked on his first quest, finding a way out of the monster-infested cave. The next day, cave. Waterblade. The severed head of the monster snake fell onto the ground. Izuku stared at the snake. Great sage, will I be able to analyze the snake? And if I can, what will happen? Answer. The analysis would allow you to mimic all of the state's abilities and certain properties. The teen had been experimenting with the current skills he had and found that they could branch off and create new skills. Well, the lower half of the snake was still moving and it was creeping him out. Female vision and poison breath do sound useful. His body spread out, swallowing the corpse whole. He couldn't taste anything, but still, well, that was an experience. He said, I never killed anything before. A hero isn't supposed to kill, but these are animals who are attacking me. Then again, the internal argument about his morals would have to wait until he was out of the cave. 7 weeks later. Cave. 7 weeks and countless monsters. The teen had eaten so many monsters and mimicked their abilities. He had been experimenting and was trying to learn how to actually speak with his mouth. All Might, one for all. He missed All Might. He missed his mom. What were they doing without him? Izuku finally stopped bouncing. He'd reached the massive door that led outside. Here it is, I go out that door, and there won't be any turning back. It was finally time. Now how do I open this thing? The door began to open much to his surprise. He quickly darted behind the nearest rock. It finally opened. 3 humans, and coming out didn't seem like a good idea, as there was no telling what might happen. It can't be helped. This door has been sealed for 300 years. The only female of the group stated, while they continued to talk amongst themselves. Izuku was quick to sneak out, but he would remember their faces. Once outside, Izuku was in awe as he roamed the forest. It felt good to finally feel the sun on his slimy body. Granted, he couldn't actually feel it. There were colorful birds at the trees that he'd never seen before. It was all new to him. The sound of footsteps and clanging metal caught his attention. Oh no! The group of small humanoid creatures with strange ears, frail bodies, and green skin, they wore worn-out armor and rusted swords. Great sage, were they? Answer, goblins. Goblins? Of course they are in this world. He looked around. There looked to be about 30 of them. The situation was awkward enough with silence. He would simply have to break the silence. Hello, my name is IZUKU Tempest, and as you can see, I'm a slime. It's nice to meet you all. To himself, he sounded fine. But to the goblins, it was like he was yelling, and there was a power to his voice. They cowered much to his confusion. Please, we are very much aware of your greatness, so please bear us your loud voice. The leader pleaded. Izuku was confused for a few moments before lowering his voice so as to not scare them anymore. Is this better? Much better, he stated. So what's this about greatness? Izuku asked. Me? That's right. Even if you've taken the form of a slime, we sensed a strong monster aura. A strong monster aura. If that's the case, then why haven't I sensed it yet with my magic perception? Was it able to completely hide from him? There's no need to geese like that with us. He smiled. Great sage, what are they talking about? Answer. There are no monsters with more magical essence than the individual IZUKU Tempest within a 100 miles radius. Izuku sighed. Of course they were talking about him. He wasn't used to being the most powerful person in any situation. Usually there was always someone stronger than him, like a teacher or pro-hero. Would you like a third-person view? Yes, please. It was strange seeing himself, but it was stranger seeing the dark purple aura that surrounded him. It was dark and seemed to spread out all around him, even rising into the air. That's my aura, he silently exclaimed. It looks like something a powerful villain would have. It was strong, but that didn't help how it looked. It would definitely look bad if anyone he knew were to actually sense and see it. Izuku took a deep breath and managed to pull the aura back in so that it could no longer be sensed. Thank you. That aura was very terrifying. The leader stated. After talking and getting everyone on equal footing, Izuku was requested to come to their village. Something was wrong with them. Great Forest of Jura, Goblin Village. The village was run down, but he wouldn't say so out loud. Something told him that it looked better in the past. Maybe, despite his objections, they served him what drink they had. Izuku didn't need to eat or drink. Not to mention he didn't have any testaments. I'm sorry, we don't have much to serve you with. The leader of the goblin forces brought in an elderly man. I'm the village elder here. Sorry to make you wait. It's fine, it really is, he stated. So you want something right? He wanted to get right to the point. He knew that something major was wrong. The way the other goblins looked at him when he entered the village, they had looks of despair, like their hope was dying. He was all to right. The old man suddenly bowed to him while the warrior took a knee. Were you? I've heard about your hidden power, and I beg you to hear our request. The elder begged. All right, but stop bowing, please. The man got up and told their story. A month ago, their dragon god vanished without warning and said God had been keeping certain monsters away. But with their god gone, monsters who wanted to expand their territory began eyeing the village. Their current problem was the dire wolves, 100 to be precise. Including the women, the goblins only had 60. The number and strength differences was very wide. You know their size number precisely? Yes, the Leguru was able to give us their numbers before he. Logura is my brother. He received a name from a powerful magician. He became the best of our warriors. He stated, the elder had lost a son. Someone lost a husband, a brother, a best friend by the fangs and claws of the dire wolves. Please, we just want to live, even if it's for the pride of my son. The man said. He and his son were bowing once more. These people, they're on the verge of being wiped out for no good reason. They can't defend themselves anymore. They need help or they'll be slaughtered. He had no need to think twice about his next statement. Don't worry about the dire wolves anymore, because I'm going to defend this village. The sudden sound of a dire wolf howling caught their attention. It sounded too close for comfort. Needless to say, everyone outside began panicking, and for good reason. The village elder went outside to calm them down, but to no avail, they were too scared. Izuku summoned what courage he currently had as he went outside. People of the goblin village, you don't need to be afraid anymore. They exclaimed, catching their attention. I, IZUKU Tempest, will save this village and storm Dragon Veldora's stead. No goblin shall die tonight when the wolves come. On my honor as a hero. Calling himself a hero sounded kind of arrogant since he'd been a hero in training, but they didn't know that it would give them hope in him at least. Thankfully, they had hope in him. All the goblins got on their knees and bowed to him. Please grant us your protection. Starting today, we are Izuku Sama's faithful servants. A lot of faith in him, it would seem. Chapter 3. Most of the goblins were either fatally wounded, near death, unconscious, or unable to move because of the pain. Such a sight made Izuku remember the various injuries that he had whenever he fought an actual villain who wanted him dead. I don't have the ability to heal, but I do have a lot of potions. Izuku stated before swallowing the goblin with a deep chest wound. My lord the village elder exclaimed in confusion. After a few moments, Izuku spit the goblin out. He was now completely healed. Izuku then went around doing the same to the other goblins, bringing them to 100% health. It was odd how, despite how advanced Earth's technology was, this kind of medicine wasn't ever developed. Then again, magic didn't exist there, so it made some sense. After everyone was healed, he had them go out to build a fence as a start for their defenses. While they did this, he set up a trap of his own. I'll put some steel thread around the trees to keep away the ones who will charge in first. This should discourage the others from charging in. He was muttering to himself, and some sticky thread to trap any who might get past the steel thread. He suddenly stopped. Wait a second. When they get trapped, are the goblins going to kill them? A realization hit him. Are they expecting me to kill? He had gotten used to killing monsters in Veldora's cave, because he had to do so in order to survive, and now he would more than likely have to do so in order to save the lives of everyone in the village. I said that I would protect them, and I don't plan on going back on my word. The world seemed so quiet now as he found himself questioning his own strength for the upcoming battle. What are my own weaknesses? He hadn't considered these before. If it turns out someone is using magic to control the dire wolves, then could they do the same to me? The thought of being controlled didn't sit well with him. I can't send anyone out to scout, and I can't risk going myself. If the dire wolves were to suddenly attack early, then the goblins would be slaughtered. He would have to deal with the dire wolves first. Hours passed with Izuku finishing up his part of the defenses, helping with the fence, and then going over the plan with goblin warriors. Night finally came, and Izuku got into position where he could see the entire pack of dire wolves. They're big, like really big. They were definitely bigger than any wolf in Earth, that was for sure. That's when his gaze went to the one with the scar over its eye. That one right there, he's the leader. He could see all of them clearly. Dire wolves, I will give you this one warning. Leave this place and never return. He exclaimed. If you refuse, then I will put you down. You threaten us. The pack leader exclaimed. Tear that slime apart. The wolves charged with the intent to kill not only him, but the goblins as well. Don't say that I didn't warn you guys, he said as the wolves ran right into his trap. The steel thread cutting into their bodies, the goblin soldiers finishing off any that were stuck. Izuku somehow felt sick to his stomach. He averted his gaze as to avoid eye contact. The pack leader wasn't amused by the sight of his pack being killed, and a desire for revenge took over as he charged forward, ignoring his son's protest. Such a trap won't work on me. He bit through the steel thread, much to Izuku's surprise. The teen activated 15% of One for All, and then charged forward, smashing into the wolf's head. Why? You. If you'd left then, this wouldn't be happening, he said before trapping the pack leader in stick thread. Water spear. A thin spear of water was sent through the pack leader's head. The position had gone through the brain and then through the heart. The two dropped to the ground, and Izuku could see that the remaining dire wolves weren't going to back down just yet. He looked to the corpse and then to the other wolves. Activate Predator. His body spread out and consumed the dire wolf corpse. Analysis of dire wolf complete. Great save stated after a few seconds. Skill mimicry was then used, and Izuku was consumed by a black mist. When it cleared, a larger than average dire wolf stood tall. It had piercing green eyes that shined in the moonlight. I offer this last act of kindness. Leave or face my wrath, he exclaimed before using his new skill, Menace. He let out an ear-piercing howl that created powerful shockwaves around him. I don't think that I'll be able to protect the goblins if all the wolves attack at once. He really needed them to leave. The wolves only inched closer and closer until they bowed. We yield to our new pack leader. We now serve you with our lives. They all exclaimed in unison. Oh, wait, what? The next day, Great Jura Forest, Goblin Village, goblins and dire wolves within 2 feet of each other. The goblins didn't think that such a thing was possible. Izuku had stopped the fighting, but now there was the issue of what he was going to do with them now. But first he had a question. Hey, do any of the villagers have names? He asked. No, it's be unusual for monsters to have names, the village elders stated. But we can communicate with each other nonetheless. It's going to be difficult for me, though, without proper names. Izuku said, All right, I'll just give you all names. He stated much to everyone's surprise and shock. All of us. Is something like that really okay to do? Of course it is. Now please form a line so that I can give you all names. The village elder was first. From now on your name will be Rigger. Something inside the old goblin began to change. Izuku could see a faint golden glow inside of him. Is this what Veldora saw when he named me? The man's son was next. You were brave in that battle. You'll have your brother's name, Rigger. Thank you, my lord. I'm going to have to get them not to call me that, he silently said. The team continued, even giving a goblin female the name, Inri, since she reminded him of the one-horned little girl. After about 2 hours, it was finally the dire wolf's turn. The first one had a star on its head. Wait, you're the son of the former pack leader, he said awkwardly. I think I'll call you Tempest Wolf Ranga. From now on your name is Ranga. Guilt was infecting his mind the more he looked at the wolf. And then something hit him. A feeling of weakness, and what's worse was his magic perception suddenly turned off. Quirkless, that's how he felt now. Weak like he was before All Might gave him One for All, and helpless like when he was a child. This feeling, He hated it more than anything. Great Sage, what's happening to me? Answer, in order to sustain adequate magic power, your body is switching to a low power mode. Great Sage explained. Estimated time until recovery is 4 days. Just because I started giving out names, well, they did try to warn me, so this is what I get. HD could hear the wolves and goblins panicking. For days. He said before everything went black. Earth, Japan, Mustafa, graveyard. All Might stared at the grave of IZUKU Midoriya. There were so many regrets in his heart now. He didn't care about the loss of one for all. All he cared about was the fact that IZUKU was gone. It had been over a month, and the man responsible was still at large. All they knew was that someone had paid to have IZUKU killed. Initially, he believed it to be all for one and had gone to confront the man. But things hadn't gone as expected. The cell was completely ruined, and there was a massive hole in the wall that showed the trail of destruction that All for One had left in his wake. The bodies of various guards and prisoners were strewn all around. Oh my God, the charred bodies were the most disturbing. There had been no activity from the League of Villains since then, but there had been an increase in crime. Stain had escaped as well, but was mostly silent. Tagahimiko and Dabi had been sighted a couple weeks back, but that was it. I don't know how to honor you with this body of mine, and your friends haven't been the same without you. Class 1 was pushing themselves beyond their own limits. Their anger and determination was driving them. There was a practice match against Class 1B and Brittle. Class 1 had been brutal and had shown no mercy in the fight. Granted, their teamwork was incredible, but that didn't change the side in front of him. All of Class 1B were on the ground in pain. There was no doubt that most weren't going to be able to move for a while. Ichako was holding a bleeding Momona by the hair. Who's pitiful now? She exclaimed. If we ever hear you badmouth Deku again, we'll have your head on a spike. Shoto threatened. That's enough. Ozawa exclaimed, using his quirk to turn off his student's own quirks. Drop him now. Ochako scoffed and threw him away. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this. Do you really think that Midoriya would approve of this? This caught their attention. You were with him in his final moments, don't you? Yes, we were there, but you weren't. Momo cut him off. We made sure that he wasn't alone and afraid. We tried to save him. She stabbed her staff into the ground. We saw his tears, his sadness, regrets, and fear of death. We could nothing but watch as the light faded from his eyes. You're right, I wasn't there, but neither was Eri or Mirio, but they mourned just like I did, just like Inko and All Might did. He stated, right now, I don't recognize any of you. All I see are villains in the making. Brief was corrupting them, and it didn't look like things were going to get better, not unless something was done. All Might didn't know it, but someone was watching him. A man who was ashamed of himself for not visiting his son's grave. He'd avoided it for too long. Soon he would act, but first he'd preparations to make. 3 days later, reincarnated world. Forest of Jura. Goblin village. Monster evolution was amazing to say the least. Goblins had turned into hobgoblins or goblinas for the females. Ranga and his pack had become Tempest wolves, with Ranga being the largest. As it turns out, they were serious about devoting their lives to him and would follow his orders. So he'd taken a chance to put up a few rules that would help the village in the long run. 1. No attacking humans. 2. No belittling other races because of their differences. 3. Do not fight amongst yourselves. These were 3 rules that he'd enacted. The last thing they needed was engaging in any unnecessary violence. He had also appointed Rigard, who was now tall and very muscular, as Goblin Chief. Now, they were working on making the village more livable now that they were also large. There was also the issue of clothes. They couldn't keep going like this, especially the Gobelinas. Carpenters and builders. We need to recruit some. Izuku said, my carpenter skills are non-existent, and I can only repair clothes, but not make them. He was knowledgeable about various other subjects, though, thanks to his father no less. Izuku, look what I got you for Christmas. The boy sprinted into the living room to see his father. There were a bunch of books and a lot of All Might merchandise. My dad was smarter than I gave him credit for. The slime said, got me to learn about advanced politics, leadership, and a lot of other advanced stuff at a young age. He chuckled. Using toys to do it too. Nice job. Still, he wished that he knew where the man had been. Had he gone to his funeral? Was he even alive? Lord Izuku. Rigurd said, gaining his attention. There is the armed nation Dworgen. They do allow monsters inside of their walls, and dwarves are specialists at creating things like weapons and cities as evident by their kingdom. He explained, that would be a good place to recruit help. Good idea. IZUKU watched as the goblins worked. There was only so much he could instruct them when it came to building. They really needed to recruit some help. Looks like I'm going to meet the dwarves. Needless to say, he was excited. Chapter 4. IZUKU had decided to bring Rigor into the city with him instead of Gobta, and the reason for this was standing right behind them. Two delinquent-looking men were bothering them about monsters being led into the city and how it was a disgrace. Rigor wanted to retaliate, aka beat them to bloody pulps, and IZUKU couldn't blame him, but they couldn't throw the first punch, otherwise they would look like the bad guys. And what's with that ugly-ass slime? It's green like moss or shit. The teen frowned, well, the slime equivalent to frowning. He hated it when people compared him to moss. It was one of the things that annoyed him more than anything. Hey, don't you have anything better to do? What did you just use? Sound like a bunch of sandbox bullies with uninspired insults. In other words, you're annoying me, my friend, and the other people in line. IZUKU said, damn slime, I'll resort into violence so quickly because you can't take the truth. How disgraceful. IZUKU was internally praying that they wouldn't attack. What would your parents say? His voice was completely void of emotion. Why did I say that? I mean, sure, I want them to back off, but bringing their parents into this? The two men couldn't form words to retort. Bringing their parents into this was a low blow. But sadly, it had a good point. The two would back off. But just your words, that was amazing. Rigor said, violence isn't always the answer. Sometimes people simply need to hear the truth, even if it hurts. He stated, my mom taught me that. Your mother must have been a wise woman. Wise, kind, beautiful, and the sweetest woman you'll ever meet. He said, I really miss her. He would never see her again, and that hurt the most out of everything. The woman who loved him unconditionally, who took care of him and supported him, was now forever out of his reach. Stop thinking about it. There's not time to cry about it. The duo eventually entered the city without problem, and IZUKU found himself amazed by it. It must have taken years to build this place. Heck, is that an elf? He froze at the sight of an insanely beautiful woman with brown skin, long black hair, and golden eyes. She walked into a building that stood out. I smell alcohol, he said. It might be a brothel or something, better keep. The sudden sound of a massive roar caught everyone's attention. I recognized that roar. From the direction of the mines came a monster that IZUKU had eaten while he was in Veldora's cave. An Armosaurus, specifically a herd of the reptilian monsters. Rigor. Yes, help civilians get to safety. I'll take care of these things. But I'll be done in a few minutes. A black mist consumed him, changing his form into a Tempest star wolf, his two horns crackling with black lightning. He was a bit larger than a normal Armosaurus. IZUKU ran forward while avoiding fleeing civilians. He arrived at the mines and saw that the many dwarven guards fighting the herd of monsters. What the hell is that? One of the guards exclaimed upon seeing him. Get back, all of you. He growled. Grab your wounded. I'll heal them after I've finished up here. He dashed forward and bit down on the neck of the nearest Armosaurus, and with a single pull, he tore the head off and spit it to the side. Get out of here now. The guards did as they were told as quickly as they could. This allowed him to finally go all out. Kind of. Great Sage, how many are there? 16 in total. Usage of black lightning isn't advised. A stray shot could bring this whole place down. He stated. All right. He ran forward. Water spear. From his mouth came a spear that went through two of the armored monsters. The others ran at him with the intent to kill. One for all. Full cal 10%. His speed increased much more than he anticipated. His claws tore through three more of the monsters, causing the others to let out roars of fury. What came next couldn't be called a fight, as IZUKU crushed, tore, and ripped the herd apart. Undone, he looked around at his work. Then his gaze went to the bodies of the dwarves who had fallen in battle. If I'd been faster then, I could have saved them. You don't know that. IZUKU looked down to see a guard. We'll gather the dead and give them a proper burial. He sighed. Thank you for saving myself and the others. If there's anything you need, just say so, and I'll do what I can. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Do you know where I can find a carpenter and a good blacksmith? Yeah, I know just the one, he said. Izuku returned to his slime form. You're a slime with a hero complex, he said. That reminds me, do you have a barrel or some other kind of large container? He had something for the injured that would definitely save anyone near death. The next day, Armored Dwarven Nation. It hadn't taken long for Izuku to fill a barrel with his healing potion. The Dwarven Guard, Captain Kadu, and his 3 friends were now more grateful and had happily taken him to the expert weapons craftsman Kadu, who just so happened to be Kadu's older brother. The 3 from yesterday worked for Kadu as well. It's nice to meet you, sir. I'm Izuku, and this is my friend Rigger. This little guy saved us and a lot of others yesterday, and we were hoping that you could help him with a request of his. Kadu said while Rigger looked around a bit. It's nice to meet you too, and thanks for saving Kid Brother. Kaijin said, Sorry, I can't stop working with my hands at the moment. It's just that this order is just so. The man was quite stressed out, that much was obvious. Tell me about this order. Maybe there's something that I can do to help. Izuku said, I have a particular skill set that might be able to make this order of yours easier. The older man turned to the small slime. Kaijin let out a sigh of exhaustion. The work was definitely getting to him mentally. To put it simply, 20 long sword by the end of the week, but there aren't enough materials. What's more, I have to use magic steel. He showed Izuku long sword. It's glowing. That's because it easily assimilates with magic as the core. So it grows in accordance with the wielder. He was able to figure the rest out on his own. Such an order sounds impossible, especially without enough materials. Who gave you such an impossible task? Rigger asked. That bastard, Minister Vesta did. He groaned. Magic steel. Magic ore, the ore I ate in Veldora's cave. He suddenly got an idea. Can it be refined into magic steel? Yes. But there is an easier way to resolve Kaijin's problem. Great Sage stated. Analysis and replication is possible. Izuku nodded. Excuse me, but I'm going to need that sword for a second. Sure, what are you? Wait, what are you doing? Izuku had just swallowed the sword. Fixing your problem. Now please wait a moment. He then swallowed the normal steel long swords as well. Analysis complete. Necessary materials have been confirmed. Would you like to duplicate? Yeah, and let's make about 30. The duplication process wasn't fancy or anything as Izuku spat out 30 long swords made of magic steel. There you go, 30 magic steel long swords. Amazement was an understatement as Kaijin inspected the swords. They were absolutely perfect to say the least, and 30 of them no less. Rigger hadn't even seen this coming. He wasn't aware that his lord could do such a thing. So, now that your order is done, would you be willing to come to our village and become our director of technology? The slime asked. Kaijin couldn't help but laugh a bit. First they would have to celebrate. Armored Dwarven Nation. Butterflies of the night. Drop-dead, gorgeous elf girls in rather revealing clothing. Rigger was at the table drinking because Izuku needed him lucid in case something happened. You really helped me out, you know. The Dwarf King was surprised when the order actually came through and those extra 10 really made an impression. I was just showing off with those extra 10 and it was no problem, he said while the blonde elf stroked his head. So, about moving to our village, your skills would greatly appreciate it and you'd be able to let your imagination run wild. Izuku said, plus I have a lot of ideas. That does sound tempting, plus it has become quite stale here. He admitted, starting over might not be so bad. Stale. I guess this place gets boring after a while. Izuku mused. Wonder how long it's been since he's seen the sun. Hey, Mr. Slime, the brown-skinned elf said, catching his attention. She was holding a crystal ball. In truth, he found her to be the most exotic out of all the girls. Want to have a go with this? The crystal ball. Do you tell fortunes? That's right. She smiled. Some would say that I'm the best at this. Plus, it's very popular. Hey, let's see who his fate's person is. The lowly elf exclaimed in excitement. Fated person? Like a girlfriend or maybe a wife. He silently mused. I doubt anyone would actually be willing to marry a slime, be they monster or human, maybe another slime, but how would that work? The elf had already started, and he leaned forward with curiosity. The inside was surrounded by a black fog before an image slowly became clear. A young woman with long black hair and eyes with 4 or 5 red lines under her right eye. She was with a group of 5 children who looked very sad, but she was smiling while trying to console them. She seems nice. She was definitely cute with a face that made Izuku speechless. I wonder when I'll meet her, hopefully soon. He mentally smiled at the thought. Is that Shizue Izawa? Do you recognize her? Yes. That woman is the hero of the Adventurers Guild, the Conqueror of Flames. And despite her youthful looks, she's been active for over a decade now. He explained. She's likely retired now and bringing up new talents in another country somewhere. Interesting. She's a hero. He mused. She must have earned that title through some serious means and a lot of hard work. She's kind of sexy for someone over a decade old. Whether she took really good care of her body or there was some kind of magic shenanigans going on that was keeping her young, the odds of magic being involved has the highest possibility. Thank you, great sage. Wow, my lord, for your fated person to be someone so well known and powerful. You're very lucky. Rigger said, yeah, I guess that I am. He was happy, very happy, and nothing could ruin that. And then the door opened. Welcome, dear customer. The bartender said. The new customer said nothing as he walked over to the unusual group. I see they're letting monsters in here now. The man's words immediately gained their attention. I hope that we wouldn't encounter any more people like this, especially in a place like this. Izuku mused. But I guess everyone is entitled to their own beliefs, even if they are horrible beliefs. Little did he know, this man had a very important part to play. Earth, Japan, Tokyo, nighttime. He didn't understand what was going on. Everything he'd done and all for one's name and glory. So why? Why was he being hunted down by the man? See, cold, it's so damn cold. The blizzard was immensely heavy to the point where he could barely move due to his body hurting. There were no people around, no lights on, and the buildings seemed to be frozen as well. This wasn't a normal blizzard by any means. You can't escape. The man turned around. Okano Takeshi, you murdered Izuku Midoriya, something you weren't supposed to do. I ordered everyone, including Shigaraki, to leave the boy alone. All for one came into view, and Okano's eyes widened in shock at the man's appearance. That messy white hair and slit-blowing golden eyes. He looked just like that boy. No, please, I've been your most devout follower for over 20 years. He exclaimed. Had I known who he really was then, I would have never. But you did. You killed him with those horrid blades of yours. There was no getting out of this. This was going to happen. He was going to freeze to death just like the other 37,468,000 people in the city. Sleep along with my precious child. In that moment, Okano's entire body froze and then fell apart seconds later. All for one coughed up a good bit of blood that stained the pure white snow. Damn the seal. Now he could no longer keep this blizzard stable. It would likely spread for miles, but disappear after a week or so. His magic was finite after all. Leon guy, and that damned hero, I'll kill all 3 when I get back. All he wanted was vengeance, but it didn't erase the guilt he felt. Even if you wouldn't approve of this, I won't apologize, my child. He would forever feel guilt for what happened. 5 days later. Mustafa, UA dorms. That's an insane blizzard. Kamarami said as they all watched the news. But they can't be serious about the entire population of Tokyo being dead. Some people must have gotten out. Hopefully, otherwise millions of people are dead through frostbite. Momo said. Still, there's no way that's a normal blizzard. It came without warning. She stated. It's not like a quirk did that. Kirishima said. That would imply that a person did this either on accident or on purpose. They would have to be completely insane. Everyone was silent. There was always the possibility of the blizzard reaching the city. The city will be evacuated if it comes this way. The massive room went dead silent as the thought of the deadly storm reaching them was a possibility. Maybe we should all be prepared to leave, just in case. Ochako said nervously, I need to go call my parents. She hopped off the couch and ran to her room. The other did the same after a couple moments. Class went ahead, calmed down quite a bit after a threat from the faculty. In truth, they hadn't truly mourned for the heart of their class. They couldn't let it go. The man who murdered their friend had gotten away. They hadn't been able to stop him. After some forced counseling, they were able to properly say goodbye to their friend. Even Bakugo shed a few tears, specifically 4 before wiping them away. They would always miss him, but they wouldn't sully his memory anymore, for it was the greatest insult. From now on, they would strive to become heroes that would go down in history as the best of the best. Izuku Midoriya would be proud of them if he was still alive today. Chapter 5. It had been 3 months since Kaijin and his friends had moved to the Goblin Village after Kaijin had been exiled for life after punching Minister Vesta in the face. Mind you, the man kind of deserved it, and Izuku had scolded the man appropriately. The message being you can't punch people because they say mean words. Granted, the minister had poured alcohol on the slime, and that was what set Kaijin off. Now, they didn't have to worry about any of that since it was in the past. The present was looking so much better. The goblins had proper clothes, and proper homes were being built, as their leader Izuku had chosen to help out as much as he could. They were his subordinates that looked to him for guidance and hope, something he had to give them just like all might have been for him. Izuku had become fully aware of how All for One worked with his current body, and he wasn't a fan. The quirk was meant to be used with humanoid limbs, something he didn't have. Using it like this only allowed him to smash into his opponents, and if he missed, then he would go flying. Using sticky thread was an option to prevent this, but using it like this made him feel uncomfortable. It was like an itch he couldn't scratch. Using Shadow Whip was an option, although aiming it was a bit more difficult due to his lack of limbs. At the moment, he was walking through the forest with Ranga. He wanted to make sure that there were no feral monsters this close to the village. It was odd, but he felt a sort of desire, almost a hunger for skills. Apparently, it was a side effect of Predator that would occasionally pop up. It's strange. The Goblin Riders reported feral monsters a couple times, but why can't we find any? Perhaps they are too scared of you, Master. Strange. I made sure to pull in my aura. He said, this should make them believe that I'm a harmless slime. This was how he'd planned to lure them in and then take them out. Maybe they're scared of you. I mean, you're pretty powerful, he stated. In fact, the sudden sight of flames caught his attention along with yelling. Oh no. Without hesitation, he hopped off of Ranga and dashed toward the commotion. If someone was making trouble, then he would find out who. 10%. He jumped into the air. On the ground a bit further away, he saw 4 humans being chased by giant red ants. One of the humans had just killed a good bit. She must have been the source of the flames. There's one behind her, he exclaimed. Shadow Lightning Whip. From his back sprouted a single black tendril. Black lightning crackled around it as Izuku sent it downward. It wrapped tightly around the large insect. Immediately, it was burned to a crisp by the lighting and torn in half by the tendril. Modding, a simple yet very effective action when used. He landed in front of the deceased monster. Talk about op, he said. It's like something you'd see in an MMORPG. Then again, this ant would be considered a pretty low-level enemy for beginners. He mused. Excuse me? One of the guys said, catching his attention. Izuku turned around. Oh, I didn't mean to ignore you guys. Wait a second. That's when he recognized the group of 4. You 3 are the ones who went into Veldora's cave a couple months back. Wait, how did you know? The blonde girl asked. Because I snuck out after you left. He stated. I wanted to warn you about the monsters inside, but I was kind of scared of you guys. Technically, he was simply scared of getting into a fight with them. He then looked to the masked young woman. Those clothes, her hair and that. He recognized her figure and everything. The hero, Shizue Ozawa. MMORPG. That's a type of video game. This slime is a world traveler, a reincarnator most likely. She deduced. Now, how about you guys follow me? You look hungry. Izuku said as Ranga came out of the shadows. 2 hours later. Great Jura Forest. Goblin Village. The 4 adventurers had been definitely hungry from all the running from those giant ants. I should send the Goblin Riders to deal with them. I'll have to accompany them, of course. He didn't want those things coming here. So what brings you 4 all the way out here? The Freedom Guild told us to come investigate what was going on with the monsters here since the Storm Dragon disappeared. Some have actually been wandering outside the forest and attacking people. Cavell explained. Is that so? He looked to Rigger, who didn't need to be told what to do. He would have this investigated immediately. They needed to avoid future problems with the active feral monsters. Well, that problem should resolve itself soon. He would go out and hunt them down himself if he had to. I still find it kind of scary about how they don't question my orders. Nobody had died yet, and everything was going well, so it was fine to them. Even so, the team felt a bit paranoid. Rigor, Ranga, would either of you ever betray me in any way? Of course not. We'd never think of such a thing. Rigor stated, have we done something to offend you? No, sorry, it's just a little paranoia. He looked to the sky. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I feel uneasy when I'm alone with my thoughts. He stated, my mind wanders, and I think about worst-case scenarios than I. The former human had tried to calm himself down as best he could, even asking great sage to suppress certain emotions and thoughts. As it turns out, this was 100% impossible to do. Apparently, he was already a bit unstable, but he felt fine. The teen looked to Shizu, who was smiling at him. Shy, Shizu, right? Yes. After you finished eating, could I talk to you in private? Of course, I'd actually like some private time with you, IZUKU-kun, she said. The teen became red with embarrassment. The way she said it was so cute. The teen left the tent and hopped on Ranga. Shurzwa is supposed to be my fated person, but does that involve romance? Because I'm not sure how a human and a slime with no gender would go about being together. He said, I've never had a girlfriend before and I don't think anyone ever liked me. I'm sure that there must have been someone who liked you romantically. Maybe, but I was so focused on becoming a hero that I never tried to date. I missed out on a lot. He sighed. I swear I'd be incredibly lucky to find someone willing to consider me as a romantic partner. He hoped to not miss out again, but he wouldn't be some kind of predator going after every girl. Predator. He had sworn to hunt down any villain who dared to try and hurt him or the people he loved. Is that why I got Predator? Ado arrived at the hill where Shizu was waiting for them. You're finally here, good, she said as Izuku hopped off and went over to her. You're from Japan, just like me, right? Yes. And as you can see, I was reincarnated as a slime. Izuku said, it was kind of scary at first, but then I got used to it. Kind of. I miss having human arms and legs. I can't imagine how difficult it must be. She sat down next to him. But you're doing well for yourself. Apparently, the Hojblins are extremely enthusiastic of you. Shizu stated, you definitely had it easier than I did. She said, I was summoned by a demon lord and forced to serve him, Demon Lord Cromwell. Forced to serve after being forcefully summoned. That sounds like hell. I'm sorry you had to go through such hardships. He said, I don't think I would have been able to live like that. Being forcefully bound to someone would be a major strain on his mentality. But you weren't murdered by some psychopath, so at least you didn't have to experience a traumatizing death. He stated, but I guess life decided to kick us both in the throats. That's an interesting way to put it. She held him close. What's it like back on Earth? It's great, but complicated with the League of Villains, social problems among people, and various other things. Those aside, it's really nice. He explained, this world is really different, but it has its charms. Even so, I miss my family. I do too. Shizu said, all I had was my mother. My dad wasn't exactly present as much as I wanted. Seeing him was rare, and it stopped when I was still young. He said, I at least hoped that he cared enough to mourn me. The slime had no idea how his father truly felt, and then pain he was still feeling in his heart. The guilt and anger that were eating away at his soul. Izuku, it's all right to cry. What? I cried a lot when I came to this world. So believe me when I say that it's all right to cry because you miss your friends and family. In that moment, Izuku allowed the tears to flow after so long. Neither Shizu nor Ranga would dare to judge him. Ranga could now recognize that his master felt a great sadness, a sadness strong enough to make him break down. This would help him come to terms and make him stronger. Emotions truly were an amazing thing. After 4 hours, the trio headed back to the village. Izuku now felt a little better, but it would take some time for him to truly accept his new life. Shizu, thank you. Don't worry about it. We're the same in a sense, and should look out for each other. She said, I'll be sure to come back and visit, so we can. Ugh. I suddenly cut her off and froze her movements. Shizu gripped her chest as her eyes began to glow red. Shizu, what's wrong? Izuku? She looked at him with a smile. It looks like they're going to need a hero now. I'm sorry. With that said, all hell broke loose. Earth, Japan, Muzotafu, League of Villains, HQ number 2. All for one's private study. All for One couldn't take it any longer. He needed his full power back, and the only way to do that was to get this damn seal off of him. Sadly, the only way to be free of it was by getting one of the ones who put the seal on him to remove it, which wasn't ever going to happen because they hated him. The second option was to overload it with pure magicules, which this world was severely lacking. Meant it? How the hell would I even get any here? He tried to come up with an idea. This world hadn't developed magic, but quirks which were inferior to skills because of their origin. In truth, they were simply cheap knockoffs. Maybe a summoning. This was the only way magicules could really enter this world, but the odds of a summoning happening was extremely low. Maybe reincarnation. No, that's extremely unreliable. He sighed. Wait, that's when an idea came to mind. There should be remnant of magicules concentrated into places where summoning took place. The man looked out of the window and down at the city. So many humans and so many souls to easily sacrifice for power once he got his powers back. Nobody would be able to stop him or his forces. The League of Villains would have no need for their humanity once they become Majin. Each one would become disaster class and break this world down so that he could rebuild it. It's such a typical villain plan, but unlike everyone else, I'll actually succeed. No hero or demon lord would stop him this time. Brother, you died in vain. It would take a little while, but all he needed to do was keep distracting the heroes with hit and run tactics while keeping his distance. He would keep his pawn closed just in case. The next day, reincarnated world, Goblin Village. Nobody had seen it coming. Shizu becoming possessed by Ifrit had taken everyone by surprise, and needless to say, IZUKU and the human adventurers were very unprepared to fight the powerful spirit. Shadow hands. Multiple pitch-black hands came out of IZUKU's body. They grabbed onto Ifrit and slammed him into the ground. Give Shizuku back, he exclaimed. A pillar of flames suddenly came up from below him. This did nothing, and he quickly leapt from the flames. Ice bullets, each one impacted with fireballs created by Ifrit who had gotten free. The steam blinding the spirit, but IZUKU could see just well. I'll be honest, you put up a good fight, but it's over now. IZUKU activated Predator under Ifrit and swallowed him whole. They were lucky that there had been no casualties. IZUKU was now next to the bedridden Shizu. Without Ifrit, she was now dying, specifically her body was aging. If there was another way, then I swear I would have. Stop. She rubbed his head. I got to spend my last day with great adventurers and an adorable little slime who truly understands me. She smiled. You freed me at long last. She held him in her arms. You don't have a human form. You'll need one to survive in my skills. Just stop. IZUKU didn't want to hear it. Shizu's grip tightened. I need you to do this for me. I want you to become a better hero than me. I need you to become a better hero than me. She stated. Now, please grant me this one last wish. IZUKU let out a sigh. With much reluctance, he had Great Sage activate Predator, but only after he was sure that Shizu wouldn't feel a thing aside from a painless release from pain. The process was quick enough. IZUKU's form shifted and changed, growing until it became humanoid. Emerald green eyes, messy dark green hair that went down to his waist, and freckles on either side of his face. He couldn't tell, but he had an androgynous look to him. Yet below his waist was an appendage that clearly said male. His appearance was that of when he was human. This form, he wrapped his lower half the cover. Thank you, Shizu. Don't cry. His eyes widened. I'm not going anywhere just yet. There were only a few ways for humans to become higher-tier holy spirits, and Shizu filled the requirements to be granted what many would call a miracle. Shizuezawa wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Chapter 6. Taste. IZUKU missed the taste of food so much, and now he could taste food when he ate it in his human form. Of course, he still didn't need to use the bathroom in any way. His curiosity about his lower appendage had gotten the better of him the other day, and he had tested out whether or not he could feel any sort of pleasure. He had tested in private, of course, and found that he could feel pleasure. He had almost used a clone to test it out, but Great Sage had automatically made it much more feminine, so it looked like a female version of himself. Of course, he forbade Great Sage from doing something like that again. This had been 2 weeks ago, and he was now helping out with building proper homes for everyone. Now that he had a human body, he could use shadow hands to carry more than others. Sitting back and watching people work wasn't his style. Another reason for this was because he wanted to get to know the goblins more, specifically Rigurd, who he gave a high managing position to. While Rigurd had those who answered to him, he answered to IZUKU in the end. Even so, IZUKU did his best to be a good leader and friend. At the moment, however, he was in his home that he shared with the sleeping Ranga. It was night, and he was staring out of the window. What's it like being a spear? I feel stronger and stable, if they make sense. Shizu said. I haven't seen Valdora or Ifrit, though. Those two are in my stomach. Your situation is different, and I guess I'm serving as your host. He said, Great sage, is there any way for Shizu to attain her own body? Yes, but you do not possess the necessary materials to perform a proper transfer. Great sage stated. Attempting to do so with your current materials would result in undesirable consequences, specifically the true death of individual Shizue Ozawa. She explained, as a high-tier spirit, she would require a body made to withstand her high magical capacity, so it'll take a while to make something. Izuku sighed. Sorry, it looks like you'll be stuck inside of me for a while. It's fine, she said. I've never felt better, to be honest. Well, that's green eyes suddenly widened. Izuku looked around in confusion. Something was wrong, and he could feel it. Like something was wrong with the world, something was violating it, breaking its natural laws, and hurting it. The magicules he was sensing was immense, and everyone else felt it as well. Everyone, get to the shelter. Izuku ordered. Rigurd, I'm already on it. The hobgoblin didn't need to be told twice. Izuku hopped onto Ranga, and the two dashed forward. Whatever this disturbance was, it was a definite threat to the village, and he had to take care of it before it reached them. If it was a feral or demonic monster, then he would take it apart and eat it if it couldn't be served as dinner. The two found themselves at the edge of the forest, and now they could see the cause. A swirling black and dark purple portal that disappeared before they could investigate it. What it left behind, however, was a person, a girl specifically. She was of short stature with the appearance of a 14-year-old girl. Yet she could be described as a true beauty with pale shiny skin, crimson red eyes, and fine facial features. Her silver hair is tied in a ponytail through a large ripped ribbon on top of it all. Her clothes were ripped up, there were burn marks in her body that needed to be healed before they could be infected, and her gaze was on Ranga and himself. Attention! Unknown individual is a monster known as a vampire. Great Sage stated. Ranking would put her at disaster class due to her weakened state. At full power, she is likely calamity class. Excuse me? The vampire turned to him with a confused expression. Hi, are you able to speak? Do you understand what I'm saying? He asked, hoping for a peaceful resolution. The last thing he wanted to do was hurt the girl. Have I seen her somewhere before? Who? Who the hell are you? She looked around shakily. Where am I? Her entire body was shaking. You're at the edge of the Jura forest. Izuku answered. I'm IZUKU Tempest. What's your name? He asked. The vampire looked around once more as to confirm that it was just the three of them. Shall to your blood fallen? I'm the guardian of the first to third floors of Nazarick. She stated with what pride she could muster. Where's Nazarick? She frowned. I have to get back, or else they'll think that I've rebelled on purpose this time. Nazarick, that brings back some memories. He silently stated as the memories came back to him. Yggdrasil. It was a simple yet amazingly fun MMORPG that he'd played often after school and on weekends. He had no friend back then. Well, not URL anyway. That game and those he played with helped his depression when he was young. Quirkless people had to stick together after all. He had been part of the guild, taking on the odd name, Tabulus Meridina. He didn't have to be the quirkless kid, Izuku Midoriya, who admired heroes. He could be someone else, something else without anyone ever knowing unless he wanted them to. Now an NPC from the very guild he had loved was now right in front of him. The creation of poor Encino himself was right in front of him in the flesh. She must be from a game, but if that's the case, then maybe Suzuki is there. As Momonga, the young man's body had been found. Withered and cold, he died from unknown causes. Knowing him, he's likely still ruling Nazarick. Izuku silently mused. You're injured and need help. He hopped off Aranga. You don't have enough MP to regenerate, do you? Slowly but surely he was getting closer and closer. Shaltir didn't have much strength left, but she would do her damnedest to kill Izuku if he tried anything. The slime was now inches away from here. From his pocket, he pulled out a healing potion. Here, this will heal your wounds. Please trust me. Shaltir had never seen a potion like this. It was shiny and looked kind of squishy. She looked at what she assumed was a human with interest. The vampire took the potion and, much to her surprise, it popped and was absorbed into her skin, causing her body to shine. Every wound she had was healed as if they'd never been there in the first place. Of course, this made Izuku smile in satisfaction, but he was still extremely wary. Shaltir had a karma rating of -400, extremely evil after all. If it came to it, then he would fight and use Predator on her, as a last resort, of course. You have my thanks. Usually, she wouldn't say such a thing to a lowly human, but this was a very special situation. What is your name? Before anything else could be said, the sound of something roaring caught their attention. Behind Shaltir was a troll-like monster, but it was wrong. There were crystal-like protrusions growing out of the left side of its body. Its eyes were completely red, and it had an unnatural second row of jagged shark teeth. This was a demon beast, no doubt. At behind me. He walked forward with a single intent: destroy the threat in front of him, but first he had to check something. Are you able to reason? To this the demon beast simply roared. I guess not. It charged at him with the intent to crush him. Spikes shot out from its left arm. These were dodged easily, of course. Izuku ran forward, dodging each attack with ease. The demon beast wasn't terribly smart. It punched downward only for Izuku to slide under it. Dark Flame Cutter. From his right hand came 6 long yet thin whips that were enveloped in black flames. They moved faster than the eye could see before disappearing. Izuku stood up and walked back to Shaltir and Ranga. The demon beast's body fell apart into tiny burnt pieces of flesh and bones. Augmentation. It had become an actual unique skill that allowed him to create new moves. Shaltir had to admit that she was impressed a tiny bit. That spell looked quite fun to use. It was probably 3rd tier at best, though. I'll have to have some scouts investigate. Demon beasts are worse than normal feral monsters. I will have to scout myself, if need be. He had to protect them. All of them. He hopped on Aranga, as did Shaltir, much to the wolf sire. Calm down, just go fast so she can get off. I'll take her to my tent, and then she'll be my problem, he said, using thought communication. It only took a few minutes for them to reach the village. Needless to say, Shaltir was more than confused by the sight, but there was something new for sure. If she wanted, she could destroy and take over this village with ease. The inhabitants took notice of her and were cautious, but trusted that Izuku knew what he was doing. They entered his tent, and Izuku let out a sigh despite not being able to breathe. Things were getting complicated. Are you the master of this place? I'm not fond of that word, but yes, I am. Izuku said, I could take over this place in the name of Nazarick, but something about the team was very familiar, so much so that she was very hesitant to attack him. Measuring his strength was impossible unless he actually did something. Using data life, she was able to see his magic heal capacity, or MP as she knew it. I'd say he has equal amount to La Pus Regina, but it looks like he's suppressing it. She didn't know how she knew this, but she could somehow tell. So, can you tell me what you remember? Izuku requested. While I was in my room, try on some old clothes to see if they still fit, which they did. Then Nazarick began shaking. Then there was light, and then pain. She said, it hurt like hell, and then I was here. This was true. I have a question. It would seem that your subordinates have proper housing while you live in a fancy tent. Why is that? Their comfort and safety come before my own. This village is still growing, and it's my responsibility to keep everyone safe. He explained, from anything and anyone who would seek to harm them. Their eyes met, and the message was clear. Izuku would be ready to fight her if she decided to try anything. Attention, shouty, or blood. Fallen's body is not absorbing magicules as it should. The The effects may be detrimental to the point where she may be weakened for an extended period of time. Great Sage said, "Hey, are you feeling all right?" Izuku asked, now concerned with her health. "Are you feeling weakened or anything like that? If you're planning to kill me, then you shouldn't make it so obvious." Her hand went a slice of Izuku's head, but was caught rather easily. She pulled only to find that Izuku had a vice grip on her hand. "Let go, damn it. I'm barely holding you," he stated. "I guess your body needs to properly adjust to this world. Let me help." Shaltir suddenly felt something enter her body. It sent an intense heat through her body and was painful and not in the way she liked. Her vision began to fade, and for a second she thought she saw one of the supreme beings standing in front of her. One that actually made her eyes widen in disbelief. And, no way, with that she passed out. "Oh dear, Great Sage. She's going through a pseudo-evolution that is altering her vampire physiology. She should awaken with 2 to 3 days, maybe a week." That gave him a sense of relief, but he was worried about what would happen when she woke up. He would have to deal with her properly. Maybe showing her my memories during my time as Tabula would keep her calm. I am a close friend of her creator after. With that plan considered, he left the tent to go help with the building once more. Unknown to him, there would be more complications to come. Complications that would change the fate of billions. Earth, Japan, Fukuoka. He could feel it. The seal had just taken damage. It was breaking. Sure, absorbing the magicules was a violent process that caused an explosion that killed a couple people, but that was someone else's problem. Strange. He mused. It felt like some of the backlash broke something. He looked around a bit. Maybe the volatile energy was sent back to its original world. There was really no telling, but it would be funny if it messed up that world just a little bit. Speaking of which, he now felt as if he had enough strength to use one of his unique skills, and he knew just who to test it on. Himiko Toga is quite expendable without her quirk. He smirked. I think a professional would be best suited for using her quirk. All for One rose into the air. I hope she enjoys the world where I was born. Japan. Mizotafu. Beach. Naoko. I'm glad you came to see me again, Inko said as she and the woman sat down. Natsuki Naoko was a woman who had lost her son as well, Natsuki Subaru. The teen had gone missing without a trace months ago, and the police had found no sign of him. The Natsuki family were quirkless and lived in a community for those without quirks. They'd know each other for most of their lives and always kept in contact. Yes, well, I only just heard about what happened to Izuku, and having to see your son like that is just so horrible, Naoko said. And that bastard was never caught, which makes it all so much worse. She growled. Actually, parts of his corpse were found in Tokyo. Inko said, It doesn't make me feel any better. Izuku isn't coming back. How's Hisashi doing? Hisashi didn't come to the funeral, but I did talk to him over the phone, and he took it really hard. He even blamed himself for not being there to protect Izuku. Sounds like he actually cares. She and her husband had always gotten a bad feeling whenever they were near him. They always felt that there was something off about him. It was like he was hiding something incredibly dangerous. Inko, our kids got along so well when they were babies. The memory made Inko smile. Sometimes she wondered what would have happened had she chosen to take him to the quirkless community when the doctor told her that Izuku was quirkless. Maybe if she had, then he would be alive. I pray that Subaru comes back, though. Inko said, Nobody deserves this misery. This was more than true, and she wouldn't wish this kind of pain on her worst enemy. Chapter 7. Everyone could hear it. That loud roaring from a monster capable of destroying towns. A monster that was to be respected and feared. A dragon. Izuku had his scouts go back to the village while he went to take care of the monster. In the distance he could see it. Blood-red scales, wings that also serve as the front legs, teeth made to tear through flesh with ease, and slit-red eyes. Needless to say, the slime was a bit scared but excited at the same time. Analysis, that is not a dragon. Great Sage stated, that is a wyvern, a subspecies of dragons. Seriously? He sighed. Well, that's disappointing. The wyvern let loose a torrent of fire below it. Upon getting closer, Izuku could see that they weren't humans, but humanoid in shape. The wyvern had done a number on them for sure. Izuku didn't hesitate to use Black Whip. The black tendril split into 6, and wrapped around the monster, causing it to squirm violently. Black flame. The flames traveled along the tendrils and began damaging the now livid monster, who retorted via spewing its own flames at IZUKU. The team flew upward and then increased his speed. 50% of 1 for all activated in his right arm, and then it was covered with flames while black lightning crackled around it. I'd rather not take any chances. He silently missed. Dual element smash. His fist impacted with the wyvern for only a second before it tore straight through it. The monster's heart was completely gone. The corpse fell to the ground, and IZUKU followed, using Predator when he landed. It took about a minute to fully consume the wyvern and a few seconds for analysis to succeed. Are wyverns usually so weak? He was disappointed. Now about you guys. The group of 6 were on guard despite being heavily injured. The horns on their heads made it obvious that they weren't human, plus one had red skin and another had purple. The latter had burn injuries. IZUKU didn't know it, but the wyvern had actually been very strong. You all need medical attention, he said. Here, these should help. He brought out 6 potions and gave 1 to each of them. Considering their situation, they didn't have any other choice but to accept the humanoid slime's help. The potions healed all their injuries instantly, while Great Sage told IZUKU that these were ogres. If you come with me, I can take you to the goblin village where I live. I assume that you're all hungry and could use some rest. Thank you, the red-haired ogre said. No problem. Besides, saving someone who is in trouble is common sense. He was quoting Touch Me. Theirs. His eyes widened. Ranga. The wolf jumped out of his master's shadow. Lead them to the village. Something crashed into the ground a few feet away from them. Despite his hesitation, Ranga led the ogres to the village. The smoke cleared to reveal Shaltir. She was awake. While he was happy to see this, he was also nervous because she was smiling. The vampire walked forward toward him, not knowing that he was fully prepared to use Predator if he had to. Shaltir Bloodfurlin's magical capacity is at a sustainable level. Great Sage chimed in. Your strength dwarfs hers by 20 times. Is there any way to put that into Yggdrasil terms, like levels? He asked before Shaltir stopped until she was about a foot away from him. You're looking well, he said. How are you feeling? Better than I've ever felt before. The vampire stated. In fact, I think that I'm stronger than before. This was 100% true, much to her delight. I've gained some new spells as well. That's when she did something that took IZUKU by surprise. Shout to your blood full and bowed to him. I thank you for this gift, Lord Tabulus Smardina. Wait, you remember me despite how I look? He asked. Before I passed out, I saw your true form while your power ran through my body. She said, I truly am happy to see another supreme being. I go by IZUKU Tempest now, so please just call me IZUKU, he said, and I'm no longer a brain eater like I was in Nazarick. He turned into his slime form. I'm a slime now, he said. Plus it's been a long time since I was in Nazarick. It feels like years, but it's only been a couple months. He sighed. Name change or race change, none of that matters. You're still a supreme being, she said. A glorious person who reigns above all others. That's a bit much, but he turned back. Hearing you say that makes me really happy. The smile. It was something so simple, but seeing IZUKU smile like that made her immensely happy. Something was there, but she couldn't be specific. Can you tell me everything that happened, please? She nodded and proceeded to explain everything that happened before she ended up in this world. From a manga, changing his name to Anzu Wall Gown, her mission and brainwashing which resulted in her death and revival, and what she knew a few weeks after that. Needless to say, IZUKU was torn. He was happy that his friend was safe, but some of his actions and decisions were controversial. Saving the human village was good, and while he wasn't fond of killing, he understood that the humans weren't going to back down. Even so, it sounded like Ains was being influenced by his new status as an undead. Then there was Albedo being in love with him. IZUKU was 100% sure that he didn't make her to be in love with his friend. A bit sure, but not in love. The other NPCs were another matter altogether. Despite this, he now understood what was going on. It sounds like you were transported to another world again. This world to be specific, and I'm not sure it's possible to get you back. IZUKU said, I reincarnated here because I died as a human and not as tabula. He bit his thumb. Something isn't right. World travelers are rare, and it's usually through hero summoning that brings them here. The hero is always human, though. He sat on the ground and listened when Great Sage began talking. A side effect of too many summonings, or it may be a freak accident with a 1 in a trillion% chance of happening. Sorry, I got a bit carried away, he said while standing up. I won't force you to come and stay, but if you want to live with us, then you're welcome to stay. He offered. This can be your home if you want. He wouldn't beg, but his tone made it clear that he wanted her to stay. If it means being in service to another supreme being, I'll stay for eternity if that's your wish, she said. IZUKU suddenly embraced her with joy. He was immensely happy to hear that she was going to stay. The vampire froze, and her face turned red as she comprehended what she was feeling. Now that they were so close, she could feel it, the immense power of the teen. It was like an eternal storm was raging inside of him, one so violent that it could consume all of Nazarick. She wrapped her arms around him, and she held tight. She didn't want to let go. 5 hours later, Great Jura Forest, Goblin Village. Nighttime. Then 1,000 armored orcs attacked your village, and now you 6 are all that's left. IZUKU said, summarizing what the red-haired ogre had told them. I don't have to assume that they'll end up here. They will unless they're stopped. He took a bite out of the bone of the monster that was being served up to the feast. How about you 6 live here from now on? That's I can offer food, housing, and clothing, plus I don't want you to go after the orcs as you currently are. He stated, it's a suicide mission and it'll mean the end of the ogre race for sure. This is the most blunt I've seen him be. Kajun silently said, well, it looks like he genuinely cares about their safety. Sorry, that was kind of harsh, but I'd rather not see you all die. Plus I get the feeling we could become really close friends. The team genuinely believed this. After all, everyone needed a friend and ally to have their back. Friends, he said. Does he mean subordinates? Misunderstandings were going to be common in the future. The next day, IZUKU would give the 6 of them names and go into a 3-day slumber. 9 days later, Great Jura Forest, Goblin Village, a dragon of immense size, larger than the entire planet with unrivaled power, and it was staring at him with glowing wide eyes. That's when it opened its mouth. IZUKU wasn't sure what the dream meant or if it was even a dream. It kind of felt like telepathic communication, but much more advanced. He would address it later, however, as he had to focus on much more important matters, like his new Kijin friend subordinates. The Envenomaru were currently watching Hakuro and Shaltir train together. He wanted to see how she would fare against the older man. Hakuro was obviously faster, and his battle experience made up for what he lacked against the vampire, who couldn't hit him. Shaltir wasn't allowed to use magic, only her lance, which put her at a disadvantage. Of course, she had been rather confident and haughty, but Hakuro was showing her that he wasn't to be taken lightly. Now she was angry. Her pride as a guardian was being tested. She's strong, Benimer said. She was made this strong and hasn't gotten stronger since, not until I gave her some of my magicules. That's a weakness that I'm hoping she can overcome. He said, the first step is damaging her pride and showing her that she isn't the strongest. This will be a learning experience, but a bit cruel. I like it. He said, I'm glad you do, but I have to ask about what you mentioned before, the Orc Lord. He said, you said he had high commanding abilities and he could suppress his troops' feeling, so they fear nothing. Yes, but one is only born every couple 100 years at best, so the possibility is low. Even so, we should assume that it is an Orc Lord leading them and act accordingly. He said, is there anything that happened before the orcs came? The devil came to my village and said that he wanted to name all of us, but he was chased out of the village because of how suspicious he was. Benimaru said, his name was? Delmuto. Sowie, he said, coming out of nowhere. That's it. So after you chase him out, then the orcs came. It's possible he directed them to your village or has something to do with the Orc Lord. IZUKU said, that's no coincidence. He stated, Sowie, what happened? There's a small group of lizard men heading here, but it's strange for them to leave the wetlands. He stated, it would seem that they're negotiating with the nearby goblin villages. Interesting. It might be because of the little problem coming this way. He said, 6 hours later, Great Jura Forest, Goblin Village. Izuku hadn't been sure what to make of Gabiru. The guy had self-confidence, was pretty arrogant, and was quick to judge. It was only when he'd mistaken him for a young human girl did he anger the others, Minasu, who'd been sent on another assignment. Then things got a bit out of hand when Gabyuta suddenly arrived. It would seem that Sean's cooking hadn't killed him, much to Isaac's relief, as he had taken a liking to the small goblin. Ranga had challenged Gabiru via using Gabyuta as a fighter. Izuku hadn't been a fan of the act, but he was sure Gabyuta could win and had promised him a new weapon if he won. Incentive always worked. Needless to say, the battle was surprisingly quick when Gabuta used Shadow Step to get behind Gabiru and knock him out with a kick to the head. This, of course, sent the lizard man retreating. That was quick. Izuku silently mused. Gabiru sighed. The lizard men could be good allies in the long run. We'll have to contact them later. He said, despite what happened, you truly believe they'd be willing to agree to be on equal terms with us? Cheyenne asked. It's a risk we'll have to be willing to take. We have a common enemy at the moment, but afterwards they should be willing to hear us out. He explained, Cabra may be their chief son, but I don't think the father is like the son. It's like you're 10 steps ahead of everyone. I'm not. I'm just thinking about the future and what's best for everyone in the long run. He said, my first concern is their safety. He silently stated, Great Jura Forest, Goblin Village, Meeting Building, nighttime. Saori had come back with a report on the movements of the orc army. Izuku had told him not to take any unnecessary risks, and thankfully he had listened because if he hadn't, then he wouldn't have been able to bring back the bad news. 200,000 armored orcs, and only 10,000 destroyed your village. That's a lot more than I was hoping for, and it changes the game plan I had in mind. Izuku said, and you said that they're headed to the lizard man living area, right? Zui nodded in affirmation. Damn, wait, how are they keeping an army like that fed? He frowned. That aside, what's their motive for doing this? They aren't a smart tribe to begin with, and if this attack isn't based on instinct, then someone must be pulling their strings in the dark. Kaijin said, someone like a demon lord? He asked only to receive an uncomfortable silence. It would seem the very thought made them freeze up. Shaltier could see that they were actually nervous, but didn't think much of the title Demon Lord since it was one that Demiurge held. The possibility is extremely low, though, but this does increase the possibility of it being an Orc Lord, which is still a problem. He said, it's just as you said, we should act like there's already an Orc Lord. Benimaru said, the evacuation measures are ready if needed. Rigard added, along with a location that avoids human territory. Good. I hope it won't be needed, though. Izuku said, always have a backup plan. He silently mused. Sui, what happened? He asked, taking notice of the man's slight change in expression. Someone has made contact with my clone. It's Adriad, and she wants to meet with you. He answered, Adriad? Well then, please show her in. The moment he said that, a gust of wind suddenly appeared, as did leaves from outside. That's when something began to materialize in front of them. This was enough for Xian and Shaltir to go and guard him, as did Shuna, although he felt bad that they were trying to protect him even though he was very much capable of fighting on his own. Audid was a beautiful woman who appeared to be in her 20s by human standards. Her skin was light with well-defined facial features. She had long light green hair and blue eyes. Oddly enough, she seemed to be semi-transparent. Her attires consisted of a full-length aqua-color dress with white sleeves, and she was barefoot. The latter annoyed Izuku, only because she was standing on the table. It's a pleasure to meet you. Izuku greeted. The pleasure is mine, one who rules monsters. I am Trainee. IZUKU Tempest. And I'm going to assume that you're here, because there really is an Orc Lord. He asked, one who rules monsters. When did I get that title? It wasn't a bad title, but it was kind of out of nowhere. That's correct. I've come here with a dire request. Trainee stated, I ask that you subjugate the Orc Lord. There it was. Now, they had 100% confirmation that it was indeed an Orc Lord. Her request, on the other hand, sure thing. His answer was simple despite the request being immense in scale. He knew that the fight was coming, and now he had another reason to fight, and he didn't plan on losing. Chapter 8. The skill-starving one allows the orcs to eat anything and everything. It's similar to your predator, though the success rate isn't constant, but with so many orcs eating, the success rate goes up. So their goal isn't to destroy, it's to gain strength through consuming their enemies. IZUKU sighed. After the meeting, he had set up the squads and laid out the plan that had the highest chance of bringing them victory. His group of 6 were on their way to the lizardmen marshlands. They knew their roles well, and he was aware that a certain vampire wanted to be on the front lines. This battle is going to be large in scale with more enemies than you've ever faced, and the tactics I would use you for won't exactly work here. IZUKU explained. What about the Orc Lord? I can. The Orc Lord is mine, but if I require backup, you'll be the first one I call. He said. IZUKU wasn't sure how he was going to take on something that could evolve into a demon lord, but he had great Sage go through multiple possibilities. There was no way to know what he was going to face, but he needed to be careful. Heroes didn't kill. Well, not the heroes he had admired. But now he understood that he couldn't be the hero he originally wanted to be. He had to be a different kind of hero. There was no other choice, not with so many lives on the line. Lizardmen wetlands. Nighttime. IZUKU flew overhead with bat wings on his back, his gaze on the battle below him. The lizardmen and the goblins they'd recruited were being overwhelmed, but not as much as he'd predicted. Even so, it was bad. All right, everyone, he exclaimed, using telepathic communication. It's time to fight for your survival and the survival of that which is precious to you. He pointed down. Attack. The order was given, and then hell descended upon the orc army as they were taken by surprise. Nobody had seen or sensed the new forces surrounding them. They quickly found that their weaker links were being taken out. No, the proper word was slaughtered. They were being slaughtered without mercy. An Imra skill, Hellflare, had a range of 100 meters which allowed for multiple kills at once. The flames were black like his own, strangely enough. Sean's sheer destructive capabilities with her new weapon, Hercules' edge, was enough to make him a bit jealous. A single swing took down everything that was 10 meters in front of her. Accurate skill with his blade and speed made him untouchable, which gave him ample time to cut his enemies into tiny pieces. Gabuda and his goblin riders were doing great as well. Ranga's Death Storm worked wonders as well. Then there was Shaltir. She was showing off her strength as a floor guardian of Nazarick. She'd used the skill, Summon Household, to spread out across the battlefield to disrupt enemy forces. This saved the lives of many lizardmen. Granted, she couldn't care less about their lives. In truth, she would have been fine with letting them die, but she'd caught on that saving them would please him. She had donned her armor and struck down any and all who attacked her. It was worse for anyone she targeted herself. She was performing her role perfectly. Now, where are you, Orc Lord? He flew forward. You're definitely going to stand out, so finding you shouldn't be. There you are. He stopped. The Orc Lord took notice of him almost instantly, but showed no interest. Shizu's mask makes me seem like a normal human. He'll underestimate me. Good. He grabbed his sword. I need a pair of gauntlets. I'm hungry. Bring me something to eat. The Orc Lord exclaimed. Starving one is really getting to him. Great Sage, is there anything else wrong with him? The Orc Lord's intelligence has been significantly diminished due to the attainment of multiple skills of different elements. She explained. So, is it possible that the sudden sight of something crashing into the ground caught his attention, but also put him on guard? If this was a new foe, then he would have to be ready to fight, prepared or not. The smoke cleared to reveal a man in a stitched-up plague doctor's mask, a white top hat, and a white coat. IZUKU expected his danger sense to go off, but it didn't. Was this guy not a threat in the least bit? What the hell do you all think you're doing? He exclaimed, gaining everyone's attention. Ruining the perfect plan I set up. Are you kidding me? IZUKU narrowed his eyes, took his mask off, and floated down in front of him, his gaze causing the newcomer to take a step back. He didn't know why, but he was scared of this little girl boy. He was a powerful mage, yet this kid made him sweat profusely. Your plan. Were you responsible for the massacre of the ogres and the birth of the Orc Lord? He asked. Is this all your fault? I don't have to. Yes or no? Yes. Then you must, Gelmod. Why? Yes, Isaac's fist rammed into the man's stomach, causing him to double over in pain, coughing as he backed away only for IZUKU to grab him and throw him right at Benheimer's feet. Needless to say, his allies found the exchange amusing. But now that the Kijin were looking at the cause of their suffering, they were more than ready to take revenge. The Orc Lord and Izuku were now staring at each other, neither moving an inch. Izuku could see that the large orc was confused, but hunger was overtaking that confusion. Izuku glanced to the orc to the left. He was glaring at basically everyone. "I'm hungry. I know, but I can't allow you or your army to eat anyone else." Izuku stated, "I can't allow you to leave here alive either. In truth, I'd rather not kill you, but we both know you won't stop trying to consume everything in your path." "I cannot stop. I won't stop," the Orc Lord said before taking a single step forward. "I will eat." He dashed forward with surprising speed and went straight past Izuku. "Shit, look out." Ichin jumped back and the Orc Lord grabbed Yamada, saving him from death. "Good in. Now hurry up and eat them so you can transform into a demon lord." This caught everyone's attention. "That's the whole reason I named you and had you do all this, to become a demon lord." Now it made sense since the Orc Lord was a demonic being. "Better yet, eat that lizard man." He pointed to Gabiru. Instead, the Orc Lord did something else. He tore Jelmud in half with his bare hands before eating his corpse. With that done, he began to transform. "Everyone get back," Izuku ordered. "His aura is corrosive." They moved just in time, and he flew into the air, but got in front of the Orc Lord. He's really evolving. In truth, instinct had told him that the aura was going to be corrosive. Affirmative individual Geld is commencing evolution into a demon lord. A new voice said, "Great sage." Negative, that was the voice of the world to fulfill Gald's request. She stated, "Warning, individual Gald has successfully evolved into Orc Disaster. Don't interfere unless absolutely necessary, understand." He looked to his comrades. Though they were hesitant to just sit back and let their master fight a demon lord on his own, but they had faith in him nonetheless, and he had faith in himself. He threw his mask to Sean and gave her a thumbs up. The two leaders locked eyes. Guild now had his intelligence back and was more than ready to fight this boy. They both dashed forward, their blades clashing with Guild's being melted as Isaac's blade was on fire. Answered the dead. Ice wall. The wall of ice blocked the orbs. Izuku ran forward with 80% of 1 for all activated. He took the opening and cut the Orc Disaster's right arm off. The wound was on fire, but he wasn't done yet. Black Lightning Whip. The combination of Black Lightning and Black Whip created a whip that crackled with lightning. Izuku sent it forward. It snapped at his foe, who seemed to take the hits only for his wounds to heal seconds later when he proceeded to eat his remaining arm. Self-regeneration. It was going to be hard to get around. He tore off the rest of his cauterized arm, and it regrew. Paeositor. 6 monstrous heads made of red and crimson energy sprouted from his aura and launched themselves at the team. Izuku dashed forward with speed, nearly impossible to follow. Ice Sniper. The long yet thin shard of ice was shot forth and went through the Orc Disaster's left eye, while another went through his chest. The large orc didn't seem fazed by this. Izuku continued to dodge as he got closer. Dance of the Dead. To this, Izuku smirked and put his free hand forward, his hands swirling around, blocking the attack. Bull Cowl 90%. In that moment has disappeared from everyone's sight. Seconds later, there was a good portion of the Orc Disaster's left half missing. The slime was now behind him and proceeded to kick him to the right. This sent away with great speed, but Izuku got in front of him and kicked him upward. Flare Circle. A single pillar of fire shot upward, but that's when he saw that it had no effect. His enemy now had heat resistance, much like himself. The Orc Disaster landed, now healed. He dashed forward, and the two engaged in close quarters combat. Every time their fists clashed, it created a shockwave bigger than the last, until their allies actually backed away. "I didn't think he would be any good at hand-to-hand combat," he silently exclaimed. "He's actually keeping up with me at 90%. He smirked. "Even so, it won't change the outcome of this fight. I have no choice but to win." He dodged a strike that was meant to crush him. Black Spikes. The orc was pierced by multiple black spikes that were coming from Isaac's right hand. The Orc Disaster took this chance to grab Izuku with his free hand and lift him up, the spikes dispersing. Now he was showing signs of fatigue, keeping up with 90% had taken a lot out of him. He could heal his wounds, but not regain his stamina. I will admit that you're strong, but it wasn't enough. He began to corrode Izuku, but the team was completely calm. Now, I shall eat you. No, I'm the one who'll be eating you, Izuku stated. Predator. His body changed shape as he reverted to his slime form, his body expanding and wrapping around the orc disaster. The corrosion damaged Izuku, but his own regeneration skill made sure that the damage was rectified. It's over, Rimuru said. Just like how he said it would be, he knew everything that would happen. It explains why he was so casual about assigning our roles. She smiled at the realization. Yeah, I plan on wearing him down over the course of the battle, which should last about 16 minutes, and then I'll defeat him with Predator. It would seem that everything has gone according to his plan. Hakuro said, from Gelmud showing up and being consumed, the Orc Lord's evolution, and the battle. The old man couldn't help but smirk. Were you truly worried? Shaltier asked. It would seem he matches Lord Ains in battle strategy. Our chances of losing this fight were non-existent. She had been told about her defeat by Ains' hands. Ains had known everything about her and had planned everything accordingly, so her defeat was all but guaranteed. Even so, she didn't look at him with fear afterwards. Yet after watching Izuku fight and now watching him consume his foe, she felt her body tremble a bit. If I'm not careful, I'll have an accident on the battlefield. It took a little while for Izuku to finish consuming the orc disaster, and the sun was coming up when he was done. But the battle was won, and IZUKU Tempest had just grown in power. Even so, this wasn't fully over just yet. 2 months later, Great Jura Forest, Midoriya, 15,000. That's how many orcs were left in the entire species. The famine had already hit their race hard, and the battle had decreased that number by quite a bit. Guild's memories had showed him the desperation the orcs had been going through, and the true reason he had become the Orc Lord. Imagine Gelmud had manipulated them all after that, and these reasons were why Izuku had chosen to encourage a kind of forgiveness. Not to mention they'd been under the harsh influence of Starving One. Using this as a starting point, he had managed to make an alliance between all the races who had attended. Even the goblins that Kabaru had brought in during his successful attempt at overthrowing his father. The Lizard Man and his followers were exiled, but Izuku had taken them in any way. It was only at the end of the meeting was he given the grand title Master of the Great Jura Forest, which also meant Chancellor. Trine had declared this and the official start of the Jura Forest Alliance. Everyone bowed to him after that. He had gone on to name the orcs and the goblins who had wanted to serve under him. Now, their one small village was growing even larger. Now that more buildings were being built, fields were being made much larger for growing food, a proper military force was being planned out, and various other tasks. Finally, the most recent event had been King Gazel and his Pegasus squad, coming to personally investigate the one who had killed the Orc Lord. The king had challenged him to a duel in order to judge him. Izuku had learned that the man was king for a reason, and likely could have taken on the Orc Lord, and maybe the Orc Disaster Evolution. As it turned out, they had the same sword master, Hakuro. After pleasantries and information exchanging, Gazel had made the proposal of an alliance. That's what you had planned on suggesting, right? Why? Yes, but I didn't think that you would want one. Izuku said, but an alliance could do us both good since this village. No, this city is abundant with resources, and I plan on making it a harder trade. He explained, I want my people to prosper, and to do that we'll need more value than we already have. Trade is one of the best ways. You planned this out. Kind of. After that they'd been officially recognized as nation country of monsters. The terms were simple. In times of danger, both nations will send assistance, and they would share technological advances with each other. A contract had been signed the next day, and the name of the capital city was made. We'll call it Midoriya, he said. It was my last name when I was human, he stated with a smile. It's also my mom's last name, he stated using thought communication. As far as they were concerned, Enko Midoriya was a wise, saintly woman. Shaltier saw her as someone to be shown great respect, as she had given birth to a supreme being even if she was human. Now, 2 months later the city was finally finished, and it was beautiful. Halflings, kobolds, Amons, elves, dwarves, and even some beastmen were coming to the capital city for various reasons. Trade, sightseeing, the unique foods, and even looking for a fresh start. The laws were made very clear and very obvious. They would be enforced without hesitation. Threats from outside were quickly dealt with before they could truly become threats. There were even those who wished to join the military force to protect the only safe haven for monsters. At the moment, Izuku was at one of the food stalls that had been built. "My God, this is amazing," someone exclaimed. They were eating pizza, one of Isaac's favorite foods. It was easy to make and tasted amazing, as evident by how much money they'd made. Other Japanese dishes and sweets were popular as well. The former minister, Vesta, enjoys cinnamon buns especially. For 2 extra gold, you'll get an entire pie, which is around 12-inch slice that can be cut up and shared with your friend. You can even choose 3 toppings. Needless to say, they ran out in minutes and had to go back into the kitchen to make more. "Lord Izuku," the assistant chef called. "Thank you for covering for me." The goblin bowed to him. "No problem," the slime said. "Food is an amazing thing that can bring people together, you know." He smiled. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go see with a certain vampire." He left and flew away. Shaltir wasn't in trouble by any means. In fact, he was more concerned about her growth. He landed where their soldiers trained and sparred with each other. Shaltir and Sean were waiting for him. The vampire had an umbrella that shielded her from the sun. Granted, she didn't exactly need it. "Sorry to suddenly call you out here, but I needed to check on your growth," he said. "Growth. The essence to do that, I've developed a new skill to gauge the strength of individuals. You want to compare the two of us, right?" Cheyenne asked with confidence that she was stronger. "I'm pretty sure I already know what the result will be," she said with a smirk that made Cheyenne want to punch her. Beta's soul. His eye became yellow and his scarab became red. A screen appeared over Shaltir's head. Only he could see it. Shelter blood phone, race, true vampire. Level 115. HP 18,900. MP 67,700. Physical ache 12,800. Magical ache 28,400. Physical def 14,500. Magical def 14,900. Resist 10,500. Special 13,000. Total 179,100. Izuku had a wide smile on his face. It was that of excitement and joy. He couldn't help himself, so he did the only thing he could think of. He pulled them both into a hug. The 2 girls didn't hesitate to hold him close. "Shaltir, you broke through the original Yggdrasil limitations," Izuku stated. "You're level 115 now. It's unprecedented," he said before using the skill on Xian. Xian. Race, Kijin. Level 90. HP 28,900. MP 12,700. Physical Act 69,800. Magical Act 23,400. Physical Death 20,500. Magical Death 19,900. Resist 13,500. Special 19,000. Total 207,700. Cheyenne, you're level 90, but your total stats are higher. He stated, "Your evolution must have increased your base stats, but not your level. The battle with the orcs brought you up to level 90, which made you stronger." Cheyenne smirked. This made Shaltir want to punch her in the throat. Now they knew who was stronger, but Shaltir's skills gave her a significant advantage. Izuku hadn't planned on using it on himself, but now he couldn't help himself. IZUKU Tempest. Brace, Slime, level 126, HP, 48,900, MP, 90,700, Physical Act, 66,800, Magical Act, 83,400, Physical Death, 30,500, Magical Death, 24,900, Physist, 45,500, Special, 80,000, Total, 470,700. He hadn't expected such high numbers, to be honest. Now I have a second way to gauge a person's strength, but having Great Sage gauge strength by magicule amount is a lot easier. He silently noted. Data Soul isn't as useful as I thought. Direction Data Soul would be best used to gauge the strength of the Nazarick residents and inhabitants of the New World. Great Sage chimed in. From what Shaltir has told you, it could be hypothesized that the magic of that world is similar to this one, but the magicules in the atmosphere have taken on detrimental properties, possibly stunting the growth of magic. She explained. However, the tier system would be best implemented here, but more information is needed. We'd have to get a magic caster from that world to explain things. IZUKU said, do I have any super tier skills? Myself and Gluttony. The latter was the evolved form of Predator, created by combining it with Starved. The latter being the skill he obtained from the Orc disaster. I'm definitely stronger than Ains now, but his skills and gear put him at an obvious advantage. If I had my skills and gear from when I was Tabula, then I'd be able to really put the hurt on him. But I gave him my gear. His eyes widened as a realization hit him. Ubido, he said, letting go of the women. That name actually made Shaltir nervous. What about her? The vampire asked. You created her to be the strongest entity in Nazarick. Yes, and I also gave her my black box. Black box? The world-class item that I got before I joined Nazarick. It has a backup of all my God-class armor, weapons, and another world-class item, Grimmer of the Almighty. He sighed. Well, I made it so she would keep it secret from everyone that Grimmer is the most dangerous item in Nazarick. Now he was agitated. How dangerous? Cheyenne asked. Her master was revealing some interesting things. It's the only one in existence. Every skill in Yggdrasil is inside of it, and the user can learn any skill regardless of race or class. Getting it was a miracle on its own. He stated, I hate to say this, but I didn't trust anyone else with the box, not even Albedo or Negrito. He groaned. Rubido is loyal to Nazarick, but infinitely loyal to me in the end. Wait, but this would mean that if you told her to do so, she would wipe out all of Nazarick without hesitation. Yes, she would, but I would never order her to do that. He said, hoping to reassure Shaltir that he didn't want to destroy Nazarick if they encountered them in the future. Hours later, administrative building. Nighttime. Despite what he told Shaltir, he would make plans just in case they needed to defend themselves. Invading was a horrible idea, as going inside was a death trap, quite literally. The traps were deadly. The cannon fodder could be dispatched, albeit carefully, but it was the actual NPCs that were the most dangerous. The Guardians, the Pleads, certain others were deadly in their own right, and Victim was the perfect suicide bomber. They would likely send undead first in order to probe our defenses, in order to get an idea of what our strength is. After that, they would most likely send a large force along with one or two of the Floor Guardians to finish us off. He had already considered intimidation tactics. The Dark Elf Twins, Cositus and Demiurge, are the main ones to watch out for, especially since Demiurge can summon demons, and his command mantra skill could easily turn the tide if a battle. He sighed as his mind went to what he knew about the other Guardians. I'll have to go to Vesta and have him and Kage and research, creating magical items to boost our military forces. He sighed. I have to be logical about this, but at the same time I want to hold out hope that Ains. Satoru still retains at least some of his humanity otherwise. He didn't want to think about what would happen if they fought. He didn't want to fight his friend, and he sure as hell didn't want to have to kill him. Chapter 9. Malim Nava, an extremely powerful demon lord that dwarfed over him in nearly every way. By Great Sage's words, she was 100x stronger than him, and using his memories and rough calculations, she could 100% destroy Nazarick and Rubido without breaking a sweat. Even her calculated level was 6,000, but he knew damn well that she was holding back incredible power. Her presence had caused Shaltir to actually start to tremble, especially when he acknowledged her power. So, why was the Demon Lord eating lunch with him? It was simple, really. This is a cinnamon bun, he exclaimed before shoving it into Milim's mouth. That's right. It was because his attack had been making her eat his sixth favorite snack. Shizu had told him to do it, and then she'd gone straight back to sleep. That woman sure was wise. Milim had then announced to the entire city that she and IZUKU were BFF, best friends forever, or besties for short. That was how IZUKU avoided getting his ass kicked in front of everyone, and they gained a new ally. Oddly enough, Milim had been the one to suggest a simple yet effective pact. The same one Materia had the King Gazel. Messengers would be sent to Milim's domain with proof of her signature and everything. So, how are you liking the food? It's freaking awesome, she exclaimed. I mean, you put melted cheese and meat in the crust. I've never tasted anything so amazing. She smiled. Well, food from Earth was varied, and there were a lot of delicious things. He stated it was basic knowledge that he was an otherworlder, specifically a reincarnator. Do you miss Earth? That's complicated. He responded, I miss my human friends, my mom, my teachers, and that's it really. He said, I guess I just miss the people and not much else. Would you go back if you could? If only to see my loved ones, to tell them everything about my adventures here, and let my mom know that I'm safe and happier than I've ever been. He smiled. I want her to know that there's no need for her to mourn anymore. I want her to know that I became the hero I always wanted to be. I want All Might to know that he didn't make a mistake choosing me as a successor. He was looking to the sky, his eyes full of determination and something that Milam couldn't describe. Well, something like that anyway, but with a lot more crying. He laughed. What about? Milam was leaning on his shoulder. Hey, MPHH. The demon lord shoved a piece of stuffed crust in his mouth. I think you're better as a monster than a human. Milam said, no human could have done everything you did. She's right, Cheyenne said, laying her head on his lap. I believe that this was destiny, that despite the tragedy we faced, it was all meant to lead to this nation where monsters and humans can coexist in peace. She smiled. Oh, what a time to be alive. Yeah, what a time to be alive. He said, it's peaceful for now, but I'm worried about the Western Saints Church doing someone against us. There was no way they were going to ignore them for much longer, not at the rate they were growing. I don't know how we're supposed to deal with them. Religion could be extremely dangerous and was the cause of countless wars and millions of pointless deaths. If used correctly, however, it could benefit everyone, but he didn't have the liberty of having such power. It's not like I want to use religion to control the masses. I just want to avoid needless violence, and to do that, he would have to think about this for a bit. An hour passed, and IZUKU managed to get away from the two women. His destination was Shaltier's home. He had promised to visit her. Apparently, there was something she wanted to show him. Shaltier's home was only a couple minutes away and was unique in that it was a bit bigger than others. IZUKU was about to knock, but the door opened before he could. The person who opened it wasn't who he expected. It was a beautiful woman with short brunette hair, slightly sharp ears, paper white skin, and crimson eyes with black scara. She wore a sleeveless one-piece white dress that revealed quite a bit of skin. IZUKU stared at the woman for an uncomfortable amount of time before he spoke. Is Shalt your home? He asked. Yes. She stepped aside. Please come inside. She's been waiting patiently. IZUKU entered and followed the woman to the room where Shaltier waited, specifically her bedroom. The woman opened the door to reveal an extremely lavish room. It was larger than he thought it'd be. The vampire was examining her wardrobe that was full of familiar outfits and a few that Shuna had made for her. For a price, of course. Specifically, she had to help out around the shop. Lord IZUKU. She turned around with a smile and sent the woman away using telepathic communication. I'm so glad you came. I told you I would. IZUKU said, I have to ask about that woman and where you got all of this. That woman is one of my vampire brides from Nazarick, just like all of this. All of this is from Nazarick. He was more than confused. Yes, I recently discovered that I have the skill item box just like the other supreme beings, but it's inferior and can only hold a finite number of items. She said, even so, I've been able to bring my things from Nazarick to here. I'd say that my old room is almost empty. She explained, granted this is the only vampire bride to survive the trip. That explained the smell of blood, but she had obviously cleaned up her own mess with the help of her only vampire bride. His gaze went to her open wardrobe. Per Orencino? He couldn't help but recall how the young man had asked him his fetishes and his favorite positions. You were the biggest pervert I've ever known, and your creation is definitely your equal. He couldn't help but chuckle. Congratulations, you've certainly acquired a very useful skill. Thank you. She resisted the urge to bow. It wasn't something he was fond of, thus she tried to avoid doing it unnecessarily. Also, it would appear that my servant showed you much disrespect and continues to do so. She believes her blasphemous thoughts are safe from the one who created her. The door swung open, and the vampire bride walked inside, albeit with much hesitation. Her expression was that of fear. The fear of death specifically. A death was very likely to come in a few seconds. You know, there were human women much more beautiful and would be happy to replace you. She stated, they're much more capable fighters as well, adventurers who are willing to serve, and therefore the supreme being that you hold various doubts about, and believe me when. Please, I meant no offense. There was complete silence as they processed what the lower vampire had just done. Did you just interrupt me when I was speaking? Then, no, now you dare to lie. You really are out of line. She was angry, but she didn't want IZUKU to see her expression change into such a distasteful form. I have no need for impudent servants. Plus your performance has been abysmal. That must have hurt, the slime said. Her doubts are understandable because of this form and the name I go by. Thus I'm not offended in the least bit. He didn't want Shaltir to kill the woman. If she doubts me as well, she said, do you truly believe that I wouldn't recognize one of the 41 supreme beings? She asked. I would have already attempted to take all of this over when it was a simple village if he wasn't one of the 41. She really wanted to carve up her disrespectful subordinate. I'm a floor guardian who's been around all the supreme being just like the others, so I would recognize Tabula's aura and voice anywhere. I would recognize any one of them. Lord Tabula? The woman asked. Lady Albedo's creator. Wait, did you not tell her who I actually was? Shaltir was silent as she realized her mistake of not explaining anything to her servant. This was her fault for not using proper and very basic communication skills like IZUKU had always told her to do, especially around humans. Shaltir could feel her face turning red from embarrassment. No doubt she looked like a fool. Well, it's okay since I sometimes forget to explain things in detail too. Sometimes I'm worried others won't understand my meanings. He patted her shoulder. I'll come back after you've got this whole thing cleared up. Oh, okay. IZUKU left and let out a long sigh. That had all be very uncomfortable. He had genuinely believed that she was going to kill her servant in front of him. That's someone with very evil karma for you. She has no problem killing her own subordinates if they mess up. IZUKU mused as he walked away. Now what should I do now? He sighed. The city is peaceful, but I wonder if there's anything that could spice it up and bring in more revenue. Some kind of attraction. He couldn't think of anything. Oh, I should check on Vesta and see if it's ready. He said before flying off. Vesta's lab. I was wondering when you would come to ask about it. Vesta said as he pulled the cover from over the side project that IZUKU had him working on. What lay on the table was a doll made of moggy steel and special wood from trainee. It had a female figure as requested and a core. It's ready. IZUKU smiled. Thank you, Vesta. You have no idea how much this means to us. His voice was no longer just his own. Shizu's voice was mixed inside as she wanted to convey her thanks as well. IZUKU put his hands over the doll. You ready? Yes. But that IZUKU, Great Sage, and Shizu each did their part. IZUKU could feel his magic draining and going inside of the doll, and then he felt her leave his body. I name you Shizuezawa. A flash of light consumed their vision. The dragon of immeasurable power. It was larger than the planet and was staring down at him. It let out a roar that rocked the universe. This wasn't Veldora. This was someone else, someone more powerful than everyone. Or what was it? Eldeneva. Remember only my form, but not my name. IZUKU let out a gasp when the light died down. His senses were in chaos to the point where Great Sage had to step in. What the hell was that? He asked. A dragon. The slime had no idea what he had seen, but it would stay in his memories, that's for sure. He looked down and his eyes widened. Moments later, tears began to flow as a hand touched his cheek to wipe the tears away. Crying isn't suitable for a king, you know, but I won't tell anyone. Shizu smiled. Thanks. He said, how do you feel? Good. This feels like real skin, although it's going to be kind of hard to get used to not having certain body functions. She stated, thank you, both of you. She said, looking to Vesta. Bringing back his fated person is one of my greatest pleasures. He said before giving the woman a bow. It's an honor to meet you, Conqueror of Flames. Speaking of flames, individual Shizu has gained the following skills. Unique skill, white flames, higher manipulation, holy magic, abnormal condition immunity, heroic aura, physical attack resistance, holy, demonic attack resistance, spiritual attack resistance, ultra speed regeneration, soul barrier, magic aura, item box, telepathic communication. Wow, that's a lot of skills. Izuku said, "Kinda wish I had item box to store different weapons for later." He only used a sword in his bare fists, but he wanted to have a pair of gauntlets made. Shizu stood up and flexed a bit. Her new body felt truly amazing and doubted anyone would be able to tell that she was a spirit unless she said something. Now she had a second chance, and she was going to enjoy it and hopefully make things right with those she left behind. Holy Empire Riberios, Western Saints Church HQ. The nation of monsters is ruled by IZUKU Tempest, a slime, an otherworlder, specifically a reincarnator. Hinata read the report out loud. Her gaze went to the Pope. The man was completely and totally calm. "You want me to investigate as a tourist?" "That is correct," the man stated. "King Gazel has already aligned himself with them, which says quite a bit about them, and we have yet to take action." He said, "A bit of personal advice. Don't let prejudice dictate your decisions." His master had taken an interest in the new nation and its leader. Milam was apparently the leader's bestie and had an official alliance with the slime. If someone as powerful as Milam was getting involved, they would have to assume that the slime was strong and dangerous. They were correct in both regards, but they would find that underestimating the team was an insult and a very bad idea. Chapter 10. Entering the city had been easy enough. They had asked her the reason for her visit, and she said that she'd heard about the unique food here. The church had given her a sufficient amount of money to use, specifically gold coins. Hinata was currently at the inn. There are humans here as well, a bit more than I thought there would be, but not a lot, although that's to be expected. Hinata looked out the window. There are lots of races here, including quite a bit of demi-humans. This was from what she'd seen so far. She had only been in the city for a couple hours after all. Feeling hungry, she went downstairs and sat down. A woman came over and gave her a menu before asking if she wanted a drink. The variety was wide, so she simply ordered a large fruit juice, which came a couple minutes later, and it was large indeed. As she looked through the menu, she saw that there were many Japanese and American dishes here. The latter consisted mostly of their less calorie-packed food. The leader must have been to America because most of this wasn't served in Japan. Hinata ordered the sushi and roast night spider meat. It came about 15 minutes later, and she quickly realized that the meat might be too much for her, as a single piece was half the size of her arm. "I guess these servings are fit for monsters and certain demi-humans like beastmen who eat a lot." She gave a prayer and started on the sushi. A single bite in, and she found herself entrapped by the flavor and texture. It reminded her of Earth, the good parts and the good times she had there. The love and kindness she'd know from her parents those few times before the gambling and the cult. Before she murdered them. Before she knew it, she was out of sushi to eat. It's pretty good. She took a few gulps of her drink. It was flavor, yet it was without sugar. Then she started on the night spider. It wasn't as good as the sushi in her opinion, but the spices brought out the flavor, and for some reason it made her feel stronger. She figured that it must be some kind of placebo effect from eating such a dangerous monster. After paying and thanking them for the food, she left feeling full. That wasn't as expensive as I thought it'd be. She mused before walking forward. As she explored, she found herself arriving at a large open area. It had an under-construction sign in front of it. There were high orcs, goblins, and humans working on what she could tell would be massive in scale. What could this be? She couldn't really imagine what they could be building. Leaving, she continued to explore until she caught sight of something incredible. A bathhouse. Immediately, she hurried inside. Monsters or not, she was going to have a proper bath, damn it. Upon entering, she saw that it was a lot larger on the inside. There was even a modern restroom. Hinata entered the bath and was quick to scrub herself clean. The woman hadn't known how dirty she was until she began washing herself. To say it was heaven was an understatement. She felt a large weight being lifted from her shoulders. Shizu-sen would love this. She mused. Hinata remembered the day Shizu left. It wasn't without warning, as the woman told her that she was going on one last adventure. She'd said the same to those children. She'd also told them that she was going to come back. From what she'd heard, Shizu had passed away here in Midoriya. That was enough to make her suspicious. After an hour of bathing, she finally left feeling refreshed. When she came out, she noticed someone very odd. A young woman in a white dress, but the odd thing was that she looked exactly like Shizu. It made her heart beat faster and her mind race. Hinata proceeded to run over to the woman who looked like her dear master. Shizu was headed to Shuna's shop. She had a special request. Then she needed to go to Kuroba in order to get a new blade. She didn't want to get rusty. There would always be danger, and she wanted to utilize her new strength in order to protect those close to her. Shizu-sensei. The woman froze and then turned around to see her former student, Hinata. The young woman was staring at her with wide eyes. Hinata, you're here. She was quickly pulled into a tight hug. This is new for you. I never knew you to be a hugger. She said only to receive no answer. I'm sorry I left so suddenly. She held the younger woman. After a few minutes of awkward hugging, Shizu took Hinata to her home. It was just like the one she lived in when she was on Earth. Can I get you anything? No, thank you. I had a large lunch. She said, Shizu-sensei, what are you doing in a place like this? She asked. Well, I live here now. She stated. I went on one last adventure, and now I'm retired in a sense. She sat down. Retired. The former hero sighed. This was going too hard to explain, but she had to explain in a way that wouldn't make Hinata go after Izuku. I'm no longer human. Shizu said, I'm a high-tier holy spirit now, and this body is made of magateel, an incredibly powerful wood from the Dryads. She explained, I'm no longer human, and because of that I'm finally free of the fear that I might lose control and hurt those around me. She smiled. I'm happy like this. Shizu-sensei. Hinata didn't know what to say. Shizu seemed genuinely happy with her life this way. Hinata looked up to her with the utmost respect, but she would have to experience more of this city in order to make her own decision. Either way, it was good to see Shizu again. 4 days later, Great Jura Forest, Midoriya. Izuku hadn't expected Shizu to introduce him to her former student. He was more than happy to meet her, though. 5 minutes in, and she made it very clear that she didn't trust him. This hadn't stopped him from being polite and kind to her as he would be to anyone else. This also meant keeping Maline from the young woman as to avoid a fight and making sure that Shaltir didn't attack when Hinata said something she didn't like. Listen, Hinata may be a human, but she can kill you. Izuku said, trust me when I say that even I would have trouble dealing with her. She's stronger than most humans I've met. Keeping the others away was easy enough since they were much more mature than Shaltir and understood when they needed to be careful around someone. Also, they could see how delicate the situation was. Izuku was very grateful for this. Wait, were all 3 of us quirkless when we were born? Izuku asked. It would appear so. Hinata said. It seems like most of those who end up in this world are quirkless. Those who don't fit in with society end up here and gain power they didn't have on Earth. She took a bite out of her meal. All might have me his, but then again, I was reincarnated, not summoned. He said, I still don't get why I was reincarnated as a slime, but at the same time I'm happy to not be human. You don't like humans. I like humans, but they can be worse than any monster or demon, which is why we're so cautious with them. He stated, the last thing I want is for anyone to die or get seriously injured. Despite this desire, he did expect them to respect the laws of the city, and there were very real consequences to breaking those laws. Thankfully, only 3 incidents had happened, and after that nobody else had been stupid enough to try anything. Izuku hoped for this peace to last, as there was really no reason for anyone to hate them. Even so, there was a reason he planned to have a secret investigation squad made. If there was anyone who truly posed a threat, then he wanted to know who and what they were, even if it was a single person. Nobody was going to hurt his people if he had anything to say about it. Pingdom of Ingratia Border. Forest. Something was wrong. Her body felt odd. No, it felt wrong, like something had changed. Why did she feel like this? It wasn't like when she used her quirk. This was different. She didn't feel like herself. What's going on? Don't worry, Toga. There's a good chance you'll reincarnate. Well, this is just an experiment, to be honest. All for One said before bringing his fist down. Her eyes shot open as that memory hit her like a ton of bricks. She sat up and found herself in a forest clearing. A few feet to her right was a large lake. She felt a slight wind on her bare body. Am I really alive? She stood up. All for one took my quirk. I fell because it hurt like hell. And then that splatter sound she heard. It must have been her skull being crushed. I definitely died. So why am I? Her eyes widened. I actually reincarnated. She laughed. Haga walked over to the lake and looked at her reflection. Horror immediately took over as she saw that she was no longer human. She was now some kind of humanoid thing with 3 holes in place of her eyes and mouth. She had no hair for claw-like fingers, female features minus her privates in her skin, if it could even be called, that was white as paper. My body? What the hell happened to my body? She screamed in horror. My face. I'm not even human anymore. What did he do to me? Haga fell to her knees and let out a monster scream of despair. No tears streamed down her cheeks, as she didn't have the ability to cry anymore. All she had were the sounds. An entire hour passed before she ceased. Toga slowly stood up and looked at her reflection once more. This is me now. I'm the monster everyone called me, she said sadly. Wait a second. She looked closer. That was when she remembered where she'd seen this form before. It was from some popular game. Though she couldn't remember the name of it, she knew what she was. A doppelganger, a monster capable of transforming into people. Maybe I can turn into my human form. That's when she heard it, a hissing that she recognized. Toga turned around to see a massive dark blue snake creature. It attacked, and immediately she backflipped away. Toga then dashed forward, and with her claws she stabbed it in the eye, but was slapped away by its tail. It hurt, but not as much as she thought it would. A monster snake. I wonder what color your blood is? She dashed forward once more, but faster than the snake could process. Moments later, it was laying in a pool of its own blood with its head now severed. Looks like I can make things bleed much easier now. She licked her blade-like fingers. This is going to be so much fun. This was her second chance, and she was going to enjoy it to the fullest. Chapter 11. The elf village in the Jura forest had never been a problem. They kept to themselves mostly, and usually 1 or 2 came to the city in order to purchase food through trade, as they had no modern money. They kept themselves isolated behind a barrier. Izuku had been content to let them do their own thing, since they never bothered Midoriya. That was until now. An elf child had been found injured outside the city. He had almost been by a feral monster, but the monster hadn't inflicted the injuries. What happened to you? Izuku asked as the child drank the water he'd been given. He had been seriously dehydrated. Human slavers raided my village and captured a lot of us. The child said, my parents helped me escape, but the humans they cut off there. Izuku put a hand on the boy's head. He wouldn't let the child think about such a painful memory anymore. The child was brave, that was for sure. Don't worry, I'll take it from here, Izuku said. As the master of the great Jura forest, I should have kept a closer eye on the elves. Master of the Are you really IZUKU Tempest? The one and only. He exclaimed with a smile. My subordinate will take you to get a proper meal. The Gablina stepped inside and led the boy out. Ranga, the Tempest wolf, came out of his master's shadow. Bring Shaltir and Sawi here. Tell them that it's of the utmost importance. Yes, master, Ranga said before leaving. He had actually felt the immense anger in his master's voice. This likely wasn't going to end well for the humans. Edge of the great Jura forest. Slaver camp. Nighttime. Shaltir's logic was very basic for the situation they were currently in. The elves live in the great Jura forest, which was Isaac's domain, and by that logic their lives belonged to him. These humans were stealing and harming what belonged to her master, and that was a sin deserving of harsh punishment. Filling wasn't allowed, sadly, but everything else was allowed as long as the slavers were driven from her master's domain. The surviving slaves were to be saved, of course. Upon arriving, she glanced to Sawi, who had brought 4 of his own subordinates with him. There was no telling what the humans had in store. 6 cages, 27 captives, and 3 are already dead. He said quietly, there aren't just elves, there are various others including humans. Not surprising, the weak are preyed upon even by their own race. Trash like humans understand that well. She mused, Lord Izuku protects the weak hand. We're in the territory of the monster nation, and they still haven't caught us. What a bunch of idiots. A man laughed. Seriously, their leader must be stupid to not have at least some of his forces guard the elves. How incompetent can you be? Another said, I heard he was a slime. His subordinates are stupid to take orders from such a weak monster. They had no idea how much danger they were in. The group of monsters glared at the group of humans from the shadows. Saw now wanted to give them slow, painful death for their insults to his master and friends. Only Isaku's orders kept him from committing murder. They dared to insult Izuku-sama, who is one of the supreme beings. Shaltier's red eyes were now glowing, and there was rage in her face. I can't let this go. Don't fill them, I know, she stated. But they must be punished. I know, he stated. But that said, Shaltier walked out of the darkness. This caught the attention of the humans, who were more than confused by the fact that there was a young girl out here in such fancy clothes. Her beauty and bust caught their attention. They didn't realize that her bra was stuffed. Hey there, kid. One of the men reached forward. You got a nice, his entire left arm was cut into tiny pieces. Don't touch me with your filthy hands. Before the man could scream, he was pulled into the darkness by someone. Immediately, the others grabbed their weapons. Shaltier examined each of them, as to make sure that they didn't have anything that could actually hurt her. Please be careful. I don't know what I would do if I lost any of you. Your master truly cared about them. Be grateful. The supreme being who rules the great Jura forest has ordered us not to kill you. She was suddenly behind the 7 older men. He is the one you insulted, the ruler of monsters. The men turned around, but she was gone and the campfire had just gone out. The sudden scream of one of the comrades on the other side of the camp caught their attention. You also insulted his subordinates, the cows. The leg was suddenly severed, and Amaz let out a scream, if only for a moment, before he was dragged off. Shaltier didn't hold in her laughter as she began to brutalize her enemies. Sure, she would prefer to kill them, but the thought of crippling them and traumatizing for life brought a smile to her face and put a skip in her step. 11 minutes later, the humans were fleeing their camp, running as fast as they could, with some fleeing into the more dangerous part of the forest where they would never be seen again. If they were killed by the monsters, then it was their own fault for running that way. The others would never return, but they would tell stories about this terrifying night. The slaves would be freed from captivity and brought back to the city where they would be treated. The deceased ones would be buried. Soon after, the elven village would officially submit to the ruler of monsters. 1 month later, Great Jura Forest, Midoriya, Administrative Building. Izuku didn't know much about Demon Lord Carrion or his territory, since he didn't bother asking Mila many specifics about the other demon lords. A foolish mistake on his part. Now he had a chance to learn since one of his subordinates was here. Their meeting hadn't exactly been peaceful, though. In fact, it had started off rather violent. Izuku caught the fist of his attacker with no effort. The Beastman was a bit stronger than Benimaru for sure, but not stronger than him. I don't know who you are, but attacking someone simply because they said hi. Izuku tightened his grip and began to overpower the man. Is extremely rude. He punched the man, sending him to the ground. The man's nose was definitely broken. Now then, the feeling of a terrifying aura began pressing down on him. He was only barely able to look up at the humanoid slime. His glare disappeared as a look of horror took over. Next to the slime was Demon Lord Milam Nava. She was glaring at him. That's when it happened. For a mere moment, he saw a dragon. One of power beyond anything he could ever hope to match. Mind telling me why you're here, starting a fight? As it turned out, he was here on the order of Carrion, to scout and find out who defeated the Orc Lord and invite them to serve under Carrion. Serve under Demon Lord Carrion. Tell him that if he wants to negotiate, then he should contact us another day. I'll forgive this little incident since nobody got hurt. Izuku said, try a more peaceful approach and we'll be able to talk properly. Izuku had no desire for conflict and would rather talk it out. I'll relay that to my master. Phobio and his comrades were trying to keep calm, but it was difficult. You don't have to be so nervous. What happened has already been forgiven. He said, Carrion doesn't need to know. Just tell him that I was away on business. Isaac's willingness to let this go was only partial as he was now on guard. Those in the room knew one thing for sure. Izuku was already preparing for the inevitable meeting. Whether it came to a fight or speaking like racial leaders, he would be prepared. 1 month later, reincarnated world, Midoriya. The business with the new hero Yam Formanas and Fuse had been very troublesome. It looked like the business with the Orc Lord was finally over. The story would be that Yam and his group had defeated the Orc Lord with the assistance of the ruler of Monster and his kingdom and the Emerald Wyvern Naka, Izuku, using mimicry. A good cover-up story that would hopefully keep negativity away from them. After all, it wouldn't be good if certain other nations found out that Izuku had literally eaten the Orc Lord and grown stronger. Only a few knew the truth. Nice job helping Yam with the whole hero attitude act. Izuku said to Shizu. It was easy enough. She said, "Oh, I got a letter from Hinata. It looks like the Western Saints Church won't be taking hostile actions against us, but that's it. That's good enough. I'd rather not deal with hostile organized religion." He stated, "Honestly, I'd rather not deal with religion in general." The last thing he wanted was fanatics and crusades. Earth's humans showed what came from those two things combined, and avoiding that was a must. Well, things are back to normal, so the sound of a roar caught their attention. Immediately, the two jumped up, and without needing any sort of order, Ranga jumped out, and the duo rode on his back, weapons in hand and ready for a fight. It had only taken them 3 minutes to reach the disturbance, and what they saw was surprising. The goblin riders were fighting an undead creature, one that Izuku recognized all too well. It stood at 2 meters tall with a crooked body. It held a flamberg and a huge tower shield. It wore armor made of black metal with red bloodlines engraved on it. Moreover, the armor has sharp thorns everywhere and looks like an incarnation of violence. 2 demonic horns protrude from the helmet, with the face being visible underneath. It has a disgusting, rotted face whose empty eye sockets are filled with hate and killing intent, glowing with a flashing red light. "That's a death knight," Izuku said. "Damn, I'm gonna have to." "Gotcha," Gabuta exclaimed as he cut the undead in half from behind. This must have been the second time it was fatally hit, because it disintegrated moments later. A level 35 undead had been defeated by a group of 5 goblin riders or it had just been Gabuta. Either way, it was impressive. "Well, it looks like we weren't needed," Izuku said, catching their attention. "Here I was hoping to take my stress out on something. Oh well." His gaze then went to Sai, who had come out of the darkness. "My lord, there's a horde of undead on the outskirts of the southern part of the forest," Saori said. "They're about 30 miles away." This was more than surprising to them. A horde of undead were certainly a problem to be taken seriously. Any sort of horde was to be taken seriously. Izuku got off of Ranga and brought out his wings. "We prepared for hordes like this, so be prepared to evacuate should the worst come to pass," Izuku said. "Now go." The slime flew off to where the horde was, knowing how risky this was and how much he was worrying the others. But this was his duty. "I have to make sure that I don't get overrun or caught off guard." "Hi." "Hey, Milam. Now, maybe I could just wait. What are you doing here?" "I was listening in and decided that I would come help." "Listen, you're better off. Estes, look out for each other," she exclaimed. "So, I'm looking out for you." Izuku was silent for a few moments before deciding to silently accept Milam's words. It wasn't like he could stop her, plus he had to admit that going in alone was a horrible idea. It was beyond foolish, and he realized now that he should have realized this sooner. "Thank you. No problem." She smiled. "I'll always have your back." She grabbed his hand and held tight. Thankfully, he couldn't feel pain. After a few minutes, they reached their target to see that it was indeed a horde. The actual number was more than 200 for sure, but most were weak skeletons or zombies. There were some dogs mixed in, but no Tempest wolves, thankfully. Wall of ice. A giant wall of ice was created in front of the horde. It was tall, thick, and was very long. Izuku looked at Milam, who smiled. "All right, let's finish this in a single attack." She reeled back her fist. "Drago, no." The fireball suddenly hit Izuku in the face. This took Milam by surprise, but Izuku had chosen to take it, as he now knew where the attacker was. They could no longer hide with their invisibility skill. Now he was following them with his eyes, and he was making it very clear. It would seem that these undead are being controlled by someone. He said, The one in charge will likely dodge, but they won't be able to run. Fly. The ragged voice cast the spell. The caster rose to their level and deactivated his invisibility spell. He was a skeletal undead without so much as a scrap of flesh on its body and radiated an aura of might of nightmarish negativity. It wore an old yet luxurious robe that covered its body of bones. It also held a twisted staff adorned with gems on its end. "You're an elder Lich," IZUKU stated. "Great Sage, how strong is this guy?" "His magicule count is 350 lower than your own," she stated. "Data soul level's individual elder Lich is level 40. Have fun." She was also showing his magicules, and it wasn't impressive in the least bit. In fact, the elder Lich seemed a bit too weak. "You know what I am, yet you have yet to flee for your lives," the undead said. "That wall of ice won't hold my forces for long. It's best you kill yourselves now and save yourself the suffering. Willem, please take down the undead army with little effort. I'll handle this guy." The tone in his voice, she had heard it before. In fact, she was very familiar with it. Her bestie wanted to break this undead for his arrogance. He wanted to play with his prey. She wasn't very good at acting, so she was a bit jealous that he was going to have more fun. Willem flew down, leaving IZUKU alone with the undead, who was a very minor threat to Midoriya. "You're sending her to her death. How cruel of you." The elder Lich said, "I'll make quick work of you, and then that city, so many corpses to use, I can make an army for my master." He took note of the mask. It was some kind of magical item. It must have allowed him to survive that first attack. Of course, he didn't know how wrong he was. The mask had a terrifying power that he would learn to fear very soon. "I'll start," IZUKU said. "Black Flame Dragon." From his right hand came a massive stream of black flames shaped like the head of Eldora. This was enough to prompt the elder Lich to dodge, as he could sense the attack was now following him. It was a one-hit kill for sure. The undead flew high into the air, much to Isaac's confusion. Teleport. He was now under the spell as it flew into the air, dissipating when it reached the stratosphere. "You miss." He was kneed in the face. This sent him flipping backwards, only to recover moments later. AMU Lightning. Black Lightning. The lightning-based spells clashed with Isaac's, going through and hitting the undead. The undead would admit that the spell hurt, but it wouldn't be near enough to kill him. IZUKU flew forward with his blade drawn and attacked with speed that took the elder Lich off guard. He was able to dodge most of the attacks, but the ones that made contact did some damage. It was seconds later did IZUKU start trying, but only for exactly 6 seconds. In those seconds, the elder Lich found himself unable to dodge any of the physical attacks that IZUKU was hitting him with. The slime was much faster and stronger physically. Black Lightning Punch. Then undead was sent flying backwards. It felt like his entire body was on fire, and his anger was rising. How was this happening to him? Him, a loyal servant of Ainz Ulgaun. He managed to stop and then took notice of his now destroyed army. The little girl was sitting there eating something like she was the happiest person in the world. This isn't happening." "Yes, it is," IZUKU said. The elder Lich turned around to see IZUKU. Then his left arm fell to the ground, prompting him to yell in pain. "You plan on attacking my city and killing my people? That is unforgivable." IZUKU took off his mask, revealing his angered expression. Then he allowed the elder Lich to feel it, a small fraction of his power. 10% was enough to show the difference between them, as evident by the elder Lich dropping his staff and then to the ground. He backed away in sheer terror as the realization hit him. He had attacked someone with power that surpassed Lord Ainz and was going to pay the ultimate price if he didn't do something quick. "Please wait. Allow me to pledge my no," IZUKU said, cutting him off. "It's obvious that you're willing to betray the master who you're doing this for, so I sure as hell don't want you." The undead would cry if he could. "Who is your master?" IZUKU asked. "Why do they want us dead? My master doesn't know about any of this." He said, "I can't let him find out about Lord Ainz." With what devotion and loyalty he had left, he used Fireball on himself. He was near death, so this was really all it took to finish him. This last act was all he could do for his lord. This was his repentance for such a humiliating loss. IZUKU said nothing as he watched the undead burn to ashes. "He would have to have this looked into." He knew next to nothing about the undead of this world, so he would have to find some information on them. The slime picked up the staff that the undead had been using. Something about it seemed familiar. It had a certain feel to it. Could this be from Yggdrasil along with that Elderlick? But if that's the case, then there's a high chance it might be from Nazarick. He used gluttony on the staff, then waited a few seconds. Analysis complete. The staff contains no trace of magicules, much like Shalti or Bloodfallen's equipment did before the individual corrupt upgraded them. Great Sage explained. The odds of the staff and the Elderlick being from Nazarick are 99.9%. Now, this was a problem. If that Elderlick was in the same situation as Shaltir, then that was one thing. But if he was sent by Ains, then that complicated things. He needed answers, and he was going to get them sooner than he thought. Chapter 12. The Throne Room. A grand throne room, to be specific. This was the surprise that his subordinates had for him in response to finding out that he was depressed about the possibility of his old friend possibly being behind the undead attack. So, in response, they decided to build him something that was supposed to represent his strength and rank as king. There were 5 columns on either side of the room, with each one being made from magisteel. The 4 drapes were light blue in color with him in his slime form in the middle of each one. They were made from the best materials, and by the best, which meant Shuna and those who worked for her. This is amazing. You guys really went all out. He said, none of us could stand to see you so depressed, and we wanted to find a way to cheer you up. Shizu said with a smile as she held him in her arms. I was going to suggest a party, but this was unanimous. She set him down on his throne and then stood to his left. On his left was Shizu, Benimuru, Hakuro, Gabaru, and Shaltir. To his right was Cheyenne, Shuna, Sui, and Milam. The latter wasn't his subordinate, of course, but his bestie and wanted to see him smile again. Ranga was in his shadow as usual. IZUKU took a breath. This felt good. He felt strong, and with them around him, he didn't feel alone. That's how he'd felt whenever he thought about the possibility of having to fight Ains, that he was going to have to face all of Nazarick as well, that he would have to become a one-slime army. You aren't alone. Shizu stated, we're with you, and we always will be. Everyone voiced an agreement, and in that moment, IZUKU realized the scope of their loyalty to him, how much he meant to him, and how much they meant to him. He couldn't let them down. He wouldn't let them down. He felt better. Everyone felt better. 1 week later, Midoriya, government building. Isaka's office. Don't kill or harm humans unless they harm you first. Don't start a fight, but you are in the right to defend yourself. He didn't want any deaths, which is why he told them to use non-lethal measures. This was the updated first law that he made over a year ago. Nothing much had changed after he'd updated said law. Things were still peaceful. A tournament could bring in some profit and exposure, not to mention entertainment. IZUKU mused. Going to have to wait, though. He said, putting the designs for the area away. His desk was now clear, much to his surprise. His paperwork was done. He sat there in silence. There was nothing left for him to do for now. The slime turned and looked out the window. It had been a week and no sign of anything from Nazarick or the New World. This was a sort of relief since most of the interactions had been negative, with Shaltir being the only positive thing to happen. His favorite vampire, who he cared about very dearly. You know, I think this is going to be a good day. He smiled. Great Jura Forest. Outside Midoriya, floating high in the sky, was a skeletal undead that wore elaborate jet black academic gown, adorned with golden and violet edges. He also has a dark red orb floating under his ribs. This man, so to say, was Ains Ul Gown, the ruler of the underground tomb of Nazarick, and his gaze was on the city below him. It was full of humans, monsters, and demi-humans living alongside each other. As if it were the most normal thing in the world, this was strange. This could likely be because the monsters were different. The goblins were much more human, so to say, wore normal clothes, and were obviously all around smarter from what he was seeing. There were even those who were guarding the road from the more feral monsters. Keeping the road clear for those coming in and out of the city was important after all. Baines wanted to get a closer look, but his appearance prevented that. They probably drew the line at undead. So he would hide his hands and face like he did with Karn Village. But this time he didn't have Albedo with him. This time he was alone. Then miles outside the forest was a log cabin that served as a temporary base during this investigation. Ora was on standby in case he needed assistance or a rescue. Putting his disguise on, he floated onto the road where nobody could see and proceeded forward, only to find himself at the entrance about 28 minutes later. Waiting for him were guards and two people who were asking questions and writing down information before letting people in. Considering his outfit, he would need to make up a good story. Hello, and welcome to Midoriya, the capital city of the Jura Tempest Federation. An elven woman greeted. Please tell me your name and reason for visiting. My name is Mamanga. I'm simply looking to enjoy what the city has to offer, he said. So you're a tourist? Why? Yes, he responded. That's a very simple way of putting it. Plus, I've never heard anyone use that word since I ended up in this world. Please enjoy the city, sir, she said before letting him in. And have a wonderful day. Baines nodded his head and thanked her before entering the city. Walking forward, he took notice of the various buildings. Some were Japanese-inspired while others weren't. They weren't as big as the ones in Irantel, but were more aesthetically pleasing to look at. Not to mention it was cleaner. The people, now that he could see them up close, he saw that there were even some halflings and fish people that he'd never seen before. It was interesting to see new races like this. This city was interesting, especially the name, Midoriya. Why did it have Tabula Smardina's Earl last name? Was it some sort of coincidence, or did he have influence as IZUKU Midoriya? If that was the case, then how did he end up in this world? He had logged out of Yggdrasil, just like everyone. So how could he be here if he was here? The Overlord continued to explore the city. As he did, he was able to figure out that the city had plumbing and an irrigation system. This explained the public bath and hot spring building he saw. He really wanted to try the latter. He subtly sniffed himself. These clothes need a good wash too, and so do I. Baines froze and then looked to the nearest shop. It was selling crispy takoyaki. He walked over to the stall and stared at one of the things he missed about having flesh. Being able to eat good food, and the best was right in front of him, yet out of his reach. How much would it be for two? That would cost 10 bronze coins. The hierarch said, seems fair enough since they're so damn big, but he pulled out 10 copper coins. Would these work despite being from another country? I'm sorry, sir, but we only accept dwarven coins or points. Citizens of the city use points to buy things they need. He explained, but if you're willing to do some work, then you can earn points to do the same. That's a very effective currency system, Ains said. I'm glad you think so, a familiar voice said. It was one that made him turn around almost immediately. Standing there was a masked teen in black pants, a zip-up sleeveless shirt that was mostly green with 2 black strips that went downward, and shoes. He was lean, and his messy dark green hair went down to his waist. It can't be. Come on, let's talk somewhere a bit more private. IZUKU ushered for Ames to follow. The undead followed in silence, unable to come up with any sort of words. Tabula Smyrnoka, IZUKU Midoriya, was right next to him. One of his friends was walking next to him. He wasn't alone in the world. But why did he look human? What was with the mask? Government building. Meeting room. The two sat across from each other with Ains feeling nostalgic about the meetings they used to have in the past. The room and table were bigger, of course, but this place got natural sunlight, so that was a plus. I think I understand what you went through, as the guild leader now. IZUKU said, well, at first, but then I made the decision to create a kingdom that welcomes those of every race, even the weaker ones. It's why there's so much diversity out there. Tabula. IZUKU. IZUKU Tempest. Okay, IZUKU. How long have you been here? Ains asked. I've been here for 3 months, but for you to create all of this would take 1 year, 6 months. We were sent to 2 different worlds, and it looks like the continent you were on was transported here. He got up and pulled out a map. It was updated. Spreading it out in front of Ains, he showed the continent they were on, along with the bridge-like landmass that connected the two. Our land shifted, and that landmass leads straight here. He pointed into the great Jura forest dock of the Jura Tempest Federation, my domain, and almost into the armed Vorgan nation who are our allies. Bane saw the problem rather quickly. There were bound to be unwanted guests looking to explore and probably take what they could from this forest, not knowing that they'd be stealing from a kingdom. That could cause some problems for IZUKU in the long run, and he obviously wanted to avoid killing. Baines, Shaltir is here in the city. She's been here since the beginning of all of this. Hell, she helped defend it, IZUKU said. She also believes that the others had no choice but to leave Yggdrasil when it shut down and are now back on Earth living as mortals. The undead's jaw dropped. She knows that my human body was destroyed, so I was reincarnated into this world. To her, my mom, despite being a human, is worthy of genuine praise and is believed to be an actual saint. An accurate description of Encho Midoriya. Ains chimed in. As far as she knows, we use human disguises for private business outside of Nazarick. Thankfully, she didn't pry. He sat back down. So, how are you handling being the last of the supreme beings? I can literally do no wrong. To Demiurge, everything I do is carefully calculated and planned, as if I'm 10 steps ahead of everyone. Ains explained, I can make plans for the future, obviously, but their expectations are much too high. Demiurge needs to learn to actually communicate with me before he plans to invade city. What? In order to increase my fame as Mammon, he wanted to invade a city as a demon named Jelbuth. He explained, the plan never happened because of the continent being brought to this world. While I'm happy to hear that lives were spared, maybe you should think of a way that doesn't involve sacrificing innocent lives. The slime said, if you got to create a situation to boost fame, then it's best to make sure that people actually see you fight. IZUKU leaned back, becoming the first line of defense for the city, and then taking Jalbadathon mid-fight would have been safer. Plus, I assume that you aren't doing this whole adventure thing alone. I have Naval Gamma as a partner. Not a bad choice. Who would you have taken? Lupus Regina Beta. I was told about her personality, and I know that as a battle cleric, she'd be able to look after herself if I couldn't assist, therefore she wouldn't weigh me down if things got bad. He explained, her higher stats do put at an advantage as well, so she'd be my first choice. Your current classes, what are they? We don't have classes here, but if I had classes then mine would be Fighter, Single Blow, Elementalist, King, Sorcerer, Apex Predator, Hero, Inheritor, and Ruler of Monsters. The last one being his title as well. That's how it would be in Yggdrasil in the Northwest, New World, as you called it. These classes were ones that Great Sage calculated. Apex Predator. I usually eat my enemies using my skill Predator, which recently became Gluttony, so nothing ever survives a battle with me. IZUKU explained, except for humans. There are 3 laws. You don't want your people killing humans. It keeps the peace, and the updated law makes my people feel safer. Even our human citizens agree with it because of certain guests who visit the city. It's no wonder everyone out there is so happy and praises their leader. He knows exactly what to do whenever a problem arrives. Ein said, long-term plans take a while, but are easy when you talk about them with your closest aides and those you've put in seats of power. He explained, talking with your subordinates about your plans. Ain's face palmed. Why didn't I take the time to do that again? It's easy to forget common sense when you're drunk on your own power. IZUKU said, Ains, even if it's just one guardian, sit down with them, talk with them about your plans, and get their honest input on said plans. Everything you do affects them, and vice versa. This was beginning to sound like a lecture. Trust me, it'll make them happy and relieve some stress. This is the first time I've had a normal conversation in a long time. It feels good. I have Shizu, but Ains has nobody who really understands him or could ever truly understand him. I want to keep being his friend, but I also have to think about this as a leader. He sighed. What would be the best way to do both? That's when a thought came to mind, a question he hadn't asked yet. Hey, what was your plan coming here anyway? He asked. Long-term information gathering and infiltration under the alias Mamanga, but there are no ranks to climb despite this being a nation of monsters. He said, you wish to make a name for yourself in order to gain access to the important information. That's a solid plan. He said, information is crucial to the survival of any group, but you need more than information. You need? There were 3 knocks at the door. IZUKU looked to Ains and then to the door. Enter. The door didn't open. Instead, someone appeared to his left. Ains figured that he must have been using some kind of stealth spell because he hadn't been able to sense his presence at all. A high-tier one most likely. Sowie, you have something to report? He looked to the older man whose eyes went to Ames with nothing but suspicion. Ames could understand the suspicion, but something told him that he was in a bad situation. Don't worry, he's trustworthy. I will trust your judgment, as I always have. Sally said. Someone seems to have built a log cabin near the border. It's surrounded by unknown monsters, and the sole inhabitant seems to be a small elf child. He then proceeded to explain what the elf child looked like along with the interior of the cabin. The inhabitant of the cabin is likely the 6th floor's guardian Aura Bellafiora. Great Sage said. While her life wasn't in danger, the last thing the two leaders wanted was a bad first impression. Great Jura Forest. IZUKU Tempest. Surrounded, she was completely surrounded by enemies, and she hadn't noticed until it was too late. She counted 4 so far, but she couldn't actually see their forms, only the occasional blur. Her detection abilities were useless, as she couldn't tell if any of them were using invisibility or any other kind of stealth spell. Her hearing was useless because there were no footsteps or breathing to be heard. Basically, she was screwed, and her beasts had actually gotten scared and were hiding inside. Keep calm and just. The sight of someone walking out from the bushes caught her attention. It was a masked human with long, messy, dark green hair. Walking next to the human was Lord Ains. The human was so close to her master that it irritated her, yet for some reason, it was like the human belonged there. I'll take it from here, the human said, prompting the hidden enemies to leave. There, now it's just the 3 of us, he said with a smile. 3 inhabitants of the great tomb of Nazareth. Well, I'm a former inhabitant, so it's 2 in 1 former. Former? Or look to Ains. This human used to live in Nazareth. That's right. Let us go inside and speak, as there is much to talk about. The trio went inside the cabin, where the human sat on one of the couches, while Ains sat across from him with Aura. The latter's beast had calmed down and went back outside as if nothing happened. Allow me to introduce myself. I am IZUKU Tempest. It's a pleasure to meet you. He sounded really friendly and seemed really excited to meet her. I'm Aura Bellafiora, she said, the guardian of the 6th floor along with your younger brother, Mayor. He said, you're very strong when paired with your brother, your beasts, or a competent partner in general. He stated, you and your brother were made by the cheerful and very talented Byakugan Kuchigama. He said, of course she was talented. She is one of the supreme beings, after all, basically a god. She said, you should know that since you were made by them too, right? Nope. He took off his mask, revealing his face. Earl? He said, although it was actually complicated. Used to be a brain eater, then a human, but now his form shifted, and the next thing Aura knew, she was looking at a dark green slime. I'm a slime. He sounded happy about it. Wait, a slime? He was the same race as her creator and Solution Epsilon. The latter kind of creeped her out. That's right. He turned back to his human form. I hope that we can get along as well as we always did in the past. He said, much to the dark elf's confusion. I don't remember you. This conversation is going exactly as he said it would. I silently thought, that's because I've changed forms and race, but my voice is the only thing that hasn't changed. IZUKU said, Tabula, I think it's time you stop putting it off. Ains looked to the window. Night is starting to come. Tabula? Aura asked. Tabula Smaragdina, as an albedo's creator. Her eyes widened. This person was one of the supreme beings, but he'd simply taken on a different form. And she'd been talking with him with such familiarity and not giving him the respect a supreme being deserved. This was the one who created Rabido. I wanted to converse with her a bit more, but maybe it is best to get it over with, IZUKU said. Is she all right? The young girl was visibly freaking out. In her mind, she had done something unforgivable right in front of Lord Ains, no less. She didn't recognize the voice of one of the supreme beings or his form, but the latter was understandable, right? You know, Shaltir didn't recognize me at first, so it's all right if you don't either. He said, please forgive me. She stood up and bowed. I should have recognized your voice, but I have no excuse for such an offense. Calm down. It was the same with Shaltir, but at least you didn't attack me. She did the same to Lord Ains. Did you punish her? No. She attacked before she knew my identity. Besides, it's not like she could actually hurt me. Well, with her current strength, she could do some damage, but she wouldn't willingly try to hurt me. He said, I trust her. Even though she attacked you? Yes. He answered, Shaltir was with me when I made the decision to create this kingdom. She's been an immense help, and people like her. He said, also, please call me IZUKU Tempest. It's a name I go by now. IZUKU Tempest. If that is the name you've chosen, then there must be a good reason for it. She said. Why change so much about himself? Was he not satisfied with his original form? Ora wondered. He said he was a human, then a slime, so obviously becoming a slime was better than being a human. She had so many questions, but on the bright side this was a great thing. This was turning out to be a great day. Burbal's holy kingdom. Alkis stared in horror as her home burned to the ground. It was only through sheer desperation and fear was she able to keep a calm exterior, which kept the others calm enough so that they could do their jobs. Thankfully, Remedios and the other paladins managed to help evacuate just as she'd ordered since fighting the beast, no, the massive demon that was destroying their home. Its minions were crashing into buildings and eating anyone they could, including her angels. Not even Remedios could hurt the minions she could dodge, but that was all. Then there was the big one that was high in the sky. It had used some kind of beam attack that caused massive damage and killed God knows how many. Alka wasn't sure how many they left behind, but they couldn't think about it right now. They needed to move to get as far away from this place as possible. There were less than 300 of them left, and she would have to make sure they all survived. Needless to say, they weren't having a good day. Chapter 13. It was a complicated story that IZUKU told Ora about why he was here and in this form. The slime was mostly honest, but left things out for obvious reasons. Apparently his assassination was enough to piss Ora off. Someone killing him was bad enough, but they'd also taken away his pure desire to do good, just like Lord Touch Me. This was unforgivable, and she'd kill the human herself if given the chance. Then there was Shaltir. The vampire didn't know what to say to the dark elf, so their reunion had been awkward to say the least. They would need time to catch up in private, but the four of them needed to address Nazarick. I don't think they'll react the same way Ora here did. Mayor might along with the denizens who don't completely hate those outside of Nazarick or human sympathizers or both, IZUKU said. Someone like Demiurge wouldn't exactly fit in here. Actually, I don't think you'll want him coming anywhere near this place. Ora said, there are lots of people in Nazarick who hate humans and enjoy killing them or causing them suffering. Lately, the same applies to those not from Nazarick. She sighed. There are a lot, and I mean a lot of us that shouldn't come to this place. The two supreme beings had told Ora to be 100% honest with her opinions on this matter. They didn't expect this, though. The dark elf was throwing her own under the bus. Well, at least she was being honest, even if she was being a little too honest. Even so, I'd like for us to have a mutually beneficial relationship. IZUKU said, the last thing we want is some kind of misunderstanding to cause fighting between us. A relationship such as that would be best for both our people. But I have no doubt that there will be those in Nazarick who will desire for you to stay. Bane said, Albedo for sure. Not to mention some may come to you rather than myself. My presence would cause some disturbance. He concluded, that a bridge we'll just have to cross when we get there. But for now, let's get this one something to eat. Almost on Kiera's stomach growled much to her embarrassment. Do you like pancakes? I don't know what those are. The doors suddenly swung open. There stood Malim. You're gonna love them, she exclaimed with a wide smile. Malim, don't interrupt Lord IZUKU while he's in an important meeting with his old friend. Shuna ran after the demon lord. I'm sorry about this interruption. I'll escort her out. Shuna looked to her ruler's old friend and his subordinate, an undead and elf child. Einzualgaun, the ruler of the great tomb of Nazarick. It's nice to meet you, Einzualgaun. Shuna said, I am Lord Isakis' loyal subordinate, Shuna. She then poked Milam. Introduce yourself. Oh yeah, I'm his bestie forever, Demon Lord Milam Nava. She exclaimed with pride. Demon Lord? Yeah, she's been here for a while. IZUKU said, she's a native of this world, but we can talk about that after we eat. He didn't get hungry, but he did desire pancakes. Northwest Continent. Robles, Holy Kingdom. Nia Borgia was glad that she was assigned to watch the rear, away from Remedios. The strongest paladin was still on edge due to the battle, but that was to be expected. It happened yesterday, and the entire group hadn't stopped moving. The massive demon and its minions weren't chasing them. In fact, it was now circling the destroyed city. What do we do to deserve this kind of punishment? Nia wanted some kind of deity or holy being to answer her question. Is this some kind of test, or was this just bad luck? Nia prayed that this was a divine test of some kind, because if it was bad luck then, that would crush her. So many people were dead, an entire city was destroyed, and they were on the run. I'm happy Mom and Dad are alive, but she looked to the orphaned children. They aren't so lucky. Some even lost their entire family. Nia clenched her bow and tried her best to calm her breathing. The thought of that demon and its minions coming after them in order to finish what it started. Mia had to wonder what the demon's goal was, or if it was even a demon. Where did it come from? She asked. Was it really? They truthfully had no idea what that thing was, or where it came from. If someone knew, then they weren't telling everyone else. This wild situation was insane, and they had no idea where they were going. Where are we going? Her gaze went to their leader in the distance. Princess Kalka had a plan, and she really wished that the royal would tell them. I really hope she's doing the right thing. You doubt the princess? A young woman asked. She sounded annoyed. Not exactly, but we don't know what's going to happen. In fact, She recognized the voice and prayed that it wasn't who she thought it was. Neo looked to the young woman and saw that it was Remedio's custodial. Oh shit, she's pissed off. Queen Kalkia is doing what's best for all of us, Squire. Remedios glared at her. So watch your mouth. I apologize, but I'm just wondering where we're going. I'm grateful to the queen since my parents are alive thanks to her quick thinking. Mia really didn't want to make an enemy of the strongest paladin. There was no way she'd be able to beat her superior. It was simply impossible for someone like her. We're out in the open too, and there's no telling if that demon attacked the beastman before us. If we're lucky, then the beastmen have gone extinct or have at least become an endangered species. Remedios said, We could use some good news. What are you doing back here anyway? The blonde girl inquired. Aren't you supposed to be guarding the queen? Queen Kalka wants me to stay on the rear with you for a bit, since you're the only one back here. She stated, Well, nothing is following us. Nia stated, Hopefully it stays that way. She hadn't seen anything. Please go bother someone else. Of course, she wouldn't say that to her face. No, she wasn't suicidal, nor did she want to start a fight. It was best to simply stick this out until she went away. Like a storm, a really angry storm. Did any of your family survive? My parents, that's it. She responded. I was lucky unlike so many others. We have so many orphans now. It's truly sad. Yes, it is. Remedios gripped her sword tighter. We weren't able to do anything to the smaller ones. Why? Mia had no answers for the paladin, but she did have a hypothesis. Maybe it's the metal our weapons are made out of. She said, maybe regular weapons simply won't work against them, and they didn't seem evil either. It was more like they were animals following orders. Not evil. She growled. Animals act on instinct. Wolves don't kill out of hate or malice. They do it because they have to eat. Maybe that's how those things, Mia found herself being lifted up into the air by the strongest paladin. What the hell are you? Those things slaughtered us without remorse that makes them evil. More so since they're demons. Remedios said, Don't ever forget that. She threw Mia down and walked away in anger and leaving the smaller girl on the ground in pain. Now her back hurt along with her head, and her opinion of her superior had just dropped a bit. Mia understood that everyone was stressed out, but there was no reason for that kind of violence. Especially against your own comrades who you had to rely on in combat. Best to just keep my mouth shut around her if I want to stay alive. She let out a sigh before slowly getting up. This had been a very painful experience. 1 week later, Great Jura Forest. Midoriya. The ground crumbled and broke apart. The seas raged against the land as it swallowed all indiscriminately. People of all races screamed in terror as death came for them in the most terrible of ways. Then the magic tore through the air, revealing what was on the other side, a bright light. That was the vision IZUKU had been having for the past week, and it was starting to scare him. The end of the world, or at least the world. The thought that a piece of another world might meld with this one was a disturbing thought. His vision might have something to do with them. Maybe he was seeing the destruction of another world, but why would he see it? Something was going on here, and he had a feeling that things were only going to get more complicated further down the line. Chapter 14. Baines found himself unable to find any really big flaw in IZUKU's leadership. Most of his decisions were made rationally, though some on emotion. The slime had his emotions, and in some ways that made him superior. Ains had been living in Midoriya for 15 days now and had noticed how the city's forces were set up. The goblin riders weren't elite, but they were well coordinated enough to be more than effective at their job. The army itself was made up of more than just goblins and orcs. There were elves, humans, and even some beastmen who saw IZUKU as a master worth serving. They also saw this nation as one worth dying for. Then there were the elite forces, in his opinion. Cheyenne, Benimaru, Sui, Hakuro, Shizu, and Shuna. These 6 were dangerous on their own, and while they didn't have skills like the Guardians did, Ains had no doubt that they were just as strong, if not stronger, in terms of stats. Not to mention experience. Shaltir was definitely stronger than she was before, which begged the question, how did she get stronger when the other Guardians couldn't? How did she break through her level cap? IZUKU alone could take down all the Pleiades at once and kill a Guardian or 2, depending on who it was. It was strange to find someone stronger who was stronger than him. As Momin, he was the best adventurer in the guild by far, and while he had been cautious about anyone in the new world with significant strength, he found no reason to be scared. Aside from the brainwashing incident, of course. But now he proper equals IZUKU and Milam Nava. Granted, the latter acted like a child and was stronger than them combined. At the moment, the skeleton and the slime were trying to figure out their next move. Things aren't going to progress for Nazarick if nothing significant is done. Information gathering is fine and all, but action has to be taken if progress is to be made. IZUKU stated, it doesn't have to be major, it can be small, but something has to be done. Your introduction would be progress. But what comes afterwards is what's important. I'd have to at least show that I still care about Nazarick despite having my own nation to run. IZUKU said, we really need to figure out who is safe to bring here, or if it's in rather well, and is learning a lot from the elves that live here. Ernmare are the only elves in Nazarick, yet it never crossed my mind to investigate the elves of the New World, Ains stated. Letting them get to know their race never seemed like an option. Well, at least she can do it in a safe environment. Mare could too, but he enjoys books, so encouraging him to read about them would be better. IZUKU said, expanding their mind could prove to be beneficial to their growth for the future. There's no telling what they'll come across or who they'll meet. IZUKU's logic was sound. It was best for the young dark elves. This could be applied to the other guardians as well. They were in the sound belief that Ains was the strongest in the world. They believed that he was a genius who was always had a plan beyond their understanding that he was perfect in every way, but this was far from the truth. What about the other denizens of Nazarick? Ains asked. They can learn, but they're bound by their karma and settings, their loyalty being absolute as a relief, though. Shaltir changed, albeit slightly. If she can, then maybe it's possible for the others, specifically the Guardians. It would make them much more effective in the long run. IZUKU said, don't forget that this nation was just a small goblin village when I found it, meaning that I should be able to do more since I have Nazarick. That's right, but it's pretty obvious that you're going to need my help since there are people in this world who are much stronger than the 2 of us combined, and possibly all of Nazarick. IZUKU said, no offense, of course. That's just me worrying about your safety. Even so, the slime put his mask on. We should start sooner rather than later. Let's go to Nazarick. The door suddenly opened to reveal Cheyenne, who had been listening in on their conversation. The woman was smiling. I hope you don't plan on trying to leave without your favorite bodyguard secretary. She said, actually I was planning on only taking Ranga, since Nazarick is a delicate place to go. They're not like us. They're kind of evil in a way that makes filtered contact necessary. He explained, I'm taking only Ranga because of that. But how long will you be gone? 3 weeks, unless I need to come back early because of an emergency. He said, in that case, Owie will come to retrieve me. Plus, I'm pretty sure I'll be safe in Nazarick. You hesitated there? Ains said, it's nothing, but what are the odds someone tries to invade? 0 since nobody knows about Nazarick, he said. At least I hope so. No, nobody knows. I would have been informed if someone had discovered us. The landscape was changed so that we'd be hidden. See, perfectly safe. IZUKU said, hoping to reassure the woman. Of course, she'd always be worried if she wasn't there to protect him. But if he said so, then she would trust him. It wouldn't take IZUKU but a few minutes to explain the situation to the rest of them. They knew their roles in the situation and the measures to take while he was gone. Aura was staying behind to help on Ain's orders, and with that all done, including a goodbye, Izuku and Ains departed to Nazarick via gate. Northwest continent, forest of Taub, Nazarick. The two stepped out of the portal and found themselves in the throne room. Izuku recognized the room immediately despite its use being few. It was ominous, and the throne served to give an air of power and authority. Much like his own, it symbolized his status and power that he didn't abuse. The large doors suddenly opened, prompting the two to turn around. Izuku had sensed this person. Said individual was a man with dark skin and nicely combed black hair. He wore a British suit with a tie. He is dressed like a gentleman. Behind his back is a silver tail, covered with metal plates and 6 long spikes at the end. This individual is the archdemon Demiurge, the guardian of the 7th floor. Great Sage stated it had looked into his memories for said information. Lord Ains, you returned. Demiurge said in surprise. And with a human. He looked around but didn't see Aura. An important matter has come up, one that involves the entirety of Nazarick, he said. Izuku stepped forward. Hello, my name is IZUKU Tempest, and I look forward to working with you. He said, I hope we can get along. He's really using that innocent-sounding voice. If I didn't know him, then I would likely fall forward. He silently said. Demiurge stared at him, sizing him up, and was fooled by his act. In his eyes, Izuku was a lowly human who was apparently good enough to be brought by Lord Ains himself. That, or he was going to be used as an experiment. Those are the most likely possibilities. I look forward to working with you as well, IZUKU Tempest. He's looking down on me already. Well, it's to be expected. Izuku silently said, It's fine for now, but it irritates me since it reminds me of Bakugo when we were younger. Then the urge proceeded to leave. You could have easily intimidated him. Ains stated, I know, but I got worse when I was human. Remember, I was quirkless. He said, It's fine for the time being. I want to tear his head off. Ranga growled, Calm down, he didn't put his hands on me, so there's no reason to act. You can dislike him, but remember that we don't start fights, we finish them. Practical yet wise, it was a simple yet easy way to survive, especially as the ruler of monsters. His people came before himself. I'll have to talk with Demiurge about respecting guests that I bring. Ains stated, although he will panic when your actual identity comes to light. Izuku let out a sigh, as this was all going to be so very stressful. The two went up to the throne where Ains sat down and Izuku stood to his right. A few minutes later, the doors opened to reveal the guardians who remained in Nazarick. Demiurge, Cositus, Mare, and Albedo. Seabass had come as well, his appearance reminding Izuku of Touch Me. Albedo went to stand by her lord's side, but he raised his hand, effectively telling her to stay with the others. That's when she noticed Izuku. I don't know just who this human is, but I doubt that Lord Ains will show him special favor. Emerge had been very wrong, as said human was now standing where she was supposed to be. It both confused and infuriated her. This masked human was special enough to stand where she once stood. The thought of her position being taken away flashed in her mind. She might be forced to become Shaltier's replacement. Ardeans, I've returned to discuss a matter most crucial, one that will shape the future of Nazarick as a whole. His words were completely serious, and this caught their attention. This is IZUKU Tempest, but you may remember him as one of the supreme beings, Tabulus Meridina. Complete and utter silence. The guardian stared at the human who Ains claimed was one of the supreme beings who had left. This masked human with messy dark green hair. Though his form has changed, and he goes by a different name, this is Tabulus Meridina. Ains said, Lord Ains, this is quite difficult to process. For my creator to become a human is a bit. Albedo had a hard time believing it. Izuku took off his mask to reveal that he was smiling underneath. This smile was accompanied by an intense pressure and a very visible aura that made their blood run cold. This aura sparked something in Albedo's mind. Know her soul. It told her many things, yet one was prominent. This was the supreme being Tabulus Meridina. This was her creator. His voice was also same. Welcome back to Nazarick, my glorious creator. Albedo said with the utmost respect. Why now of all times? Albedo's acknowledgement was enough for them. Not to mention, only a supreme being could wield such immense power. To have one back lifted their spirits and brought forth a determination that they'd never felt before. Thank you, it's good to be back, IZUKU said. Now, on to the more pressing issue. Nazarik's future, specifically adapting to this world to ensure prosperity and safety. I was told about the Jabadath plan and how it never came to fruition because this continent ended up being transported into this world, the one I ended up in. IZUKU has been here for an entire year, and in that time he turned a tiny goblin village into a kingdom made of many races that exist peacefully. Ain stated, such a feat, and in such a short amount of time, is something only a supreme being could accomplish. Albedo complimented. Her compliment was genuine despite her feelings about him showing up so suddenly. Shaltir is there as well, safe and sound. Their eyes widened upon hearing this. The Lost Guardian had been with another supreme being this whole time. It would appear that she was transported before this continent, but I have yet to figure out how. He said, her assistance in the beginning was invaluable. She truly deserves her title as guardian. Such words of praise made Albedo a bit irritated. To hear her creator say such a thing about Shaltir, but not her, was disheartening. It made her a bit, very jealous. The thought of her creator praising her with such kind words made her smile, just as a child would at the sight of their proud parent. That aside, her ability to adapt is something that Nazarik is in great need of if it wants to survive, which is why I've come. He explained, I will truly try my best to make things work. So let's get along, everyone. Northwest Continent. Kingdom. Irantel. Nighttime. Ah, this is so much fun. Toga exclaimed with joy. Around her were the mutilated bodies of various humans. Too weak, slow, and not durable in the least bit. They were mercenaries supposedly, but so far all they were victims of her fun. This killing was a job she'd taken when the Golden Princess requested her help. After finding her trespassing and nearly killing the guards who tried to apprehend her, Oga could have easily killed the princess and take her place. This isn't what she wanted, though. IZUKU-kun, just wait a little while longer. I'll be coming for you soon. The ruler of monsters was her obsession even after being reincarnated, and it had to be fate they were both monsters. IZUKU was a hero while she was a villain. This didn't mean that they couldn't have some fun, though. It would be just like old times.